Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our further continuing budget session. Today is Thursday, February the 2nd, and I'll call this meeting to order at 9:05. First of all, we'll have our territorial land acknowledgement. And we have a copy of that ain't been kicking around because I don't see my. I should Pat. Pat. And I know why that's put there. So I'm going to do our territorial land acknowledgement. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Allen-McCalderman is located on the Mississaugan-Ashaninabek territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugan-Ashaninabek. The township of Allen-McCalderman respectfully acknowledges the Mississauga nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Miigwech. Disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Seeing none, that'll be recorded. Item 4.1 is approval of the agenda as circulated. Be it resolved that the agenda for the budget session of Thursday, February 2nd, 2023 be approved as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. And we're going to go right back into the draft budget. And I believe we're going to start with cemeteries. Nicole, is that what you're planning on? Okay. You have the floor, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. So we're on page 25 of your binders, page 54 of 59. And the cemetery budget is a small one. However, you will see that there is an increase in the amount being raised by taxation. That's due to a couple of reasons. I was speaking with our public works manager, and we did have an accident occur right at the Macklin Cemetery, and a fence was taken out as well as some stones. The fence has now been replaced, but the damage to the stones has not been looked after at this point. I did add $5,000 into the budget for that. I did also increase. Last year we did not budget for any maintenance of the historical cemeteries, and we do grass cutting and such at those cemeteries. So I did put a budget line in for those this year. You will see in 2021, we've already allocated a certain amount of grass cutting to those cemeteries, and the final one for the summer months still has to be done. So only one allocation was done for that. And then you'll also see that the income from Centenary, we've increased the budget for that. I was speaking with Diane, who manages all of our cemeteries, and she felt that we should be putting in a little bit more for that. It's our most active cemetery, and I believe she knew that we were already starting to get some revenue there in 2023. So
So that's coming out of the levy then?
Yes, it is.
How much is that?
So the increase this year is $7,526.37. So the total amount coming out of the levy is $18,000 versus just under 11,000 last year.
Okay. Questions from council? Go ahead, Councilor O'Neill.
Most of my questions are not specific to budget, but is there an opportunity at some point during the calendar year for Diane, who manages these, to come in and talk to us and explain more?
Go ahead, Frank.
Through you, your worship, I think it would be of great value if Diane came in here and really explained all about cemeteries, because I think it's something that needs to be known. We need to forecast into the future for succession planning as well. For when Diane does retire, we need to have someone in place. But I think it would be of great value to council to know what's involved with cemeteries. So I will definitely make that happen.
Go ahead.
And if possible, can that include having her look and follow up on that request we had regarding the columbarium and what's involved in that?
Will do.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Logo. I'm just wondering, is this, are we able to tap into the perpetual care for these cemeteries? Nicole?
Through you, Mayor Local. Deputy Mayor Stover, I'm assuming you're asking the care and maintenance amounts that are sitting there. Can we tap into those to fund the maintenance of the historical cemeteries? Is that what you're asking?
The historical and all the ones that, because I mean, they all go into this, I would think each cemetery would have their own perpetual care.
That, I mean, it's a great question. I can look into that. I'm not sure what the process is for pulling those funds back out of the care and maintenance fund, but I can definitely look into that. And I will do that before the next budget.
Thank you.
Further questions? I guess we have about $23,000 in reserves. So we're not making really an awful lot of interest money, are we? Which is supposed to help carry some of this.
Yeah.
Just a comment. Any further questions or comments regarding cemeteries? I have a mover and a seconder to approve in principle. Moved by Mary Catherine, seconded by Joan. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
So the next one on the agenda is the environmental and conservation budget. And that's at tab 26 in your binder, page 57 of 59. So this budget is for funding from taxation of $154,000. That's just over $8,000 more than the budget for last year, which is a levy impact of 0.12%. The main reasons for that increase, one is the 2.7% increase in the Ganaraska Conservation Authority levy. That increase was $364.17. There was also an increase in the Lower Trent Conservation Authority levy, and that was a 5% increase at $5,796. And I've actually put through a very small decrease in the source water protection budget versus last year. I just took the actuals for 2022 and added a 5% increase there. Last year we had budgeted 6,000. The GFL hazardous waste services, my inclination would be to think that wouldn't change a whole lot when you look at 2021 versus 2022, what we paid for services to GFL. So I put in a 1% increase in the budget there. So the total increase in the budget over last year is 5.5%.
Anything further?
Yeah.
Thank
No.
you. Questions and comments from council? Councillor Booth?
Yeah, through you, your worship, more maybe a comment or just something maybe directed towards Councillor Ainsworth and Deputy Mayor Joan Stover, because they sit on these committees. And maybe more so for you, Mike, is I'm really concerned about the Lower Trent and their costs. Last year, Lower Trent raised their rates 7.57%, and Ganaraska only raised it 0.17. Now, this year again, Ganaraska is very reasonable at 2.7 and Lower Trent's at 5. So I don't get it. I don't understand. They're both conservation areas. So maybe Mike, as the councillor rep on Lower Trent, you can, express our concerns or something, but they seem to be 3, 4, 5 times the amount that Ganaraska is charging. So maybe lucky for you, Deputy Mayor, you're sitting on the good committee that's not spending the money, but Lower Trent seems out of control. That's my comment.
Thank you. Further comments? I guess I've got to ask, I know that the province is continuing to push back and say we're spending too much money on environmental, in their opinion, we're spending too much. But I think, are we going to see any of that reduction in work that they're doing, or is that strictly special charges that we pay for when we get those services done? Does anybody know that? And I guess what I'm asking more like the planning opinions they give us. Is that part of this, or is that part of something else? Maybe it's in the planning portion, maybe.
I'm unsure. Are you asking about the hazardous waste services or?
No. I'm talking about the services provided by Lower Trent or Ganaraska. Because we pay for them, but what are we really getting from them? I guess is my real question. And the services, the province is saying we're not going to, they are no longer allowed to give their opinions on several different things. Yet the prices don't seem to be dropping any. Mary Catherine?
Through you, Mayor Logo. I think they were in a position where they have to put their budget forth, and they can only put their budget forth on what they were doing. We still don't have the regulations for Bill 23. I think your question is going to be very relevant when they bring forward the next budget. But for this year, they were setting their budget. If they released it and approved it in October and billed us, they were making those decisions about budget last September.
That's a good point. Hopefully we'll see. Go ahead.
No,
Councillor Booth.
just to add on to that, what Councillor O'Neill's saying, and I know being on the Ganaraska last time, it'll probably come forward to both our representatives that they're looking at a basket now, like shopping. So you're going to get a base rate, what they're going to charge you. And then if you want anything extra, that is not mandated. So the province is going to say, you must provide this and this, and anything extra, then you're going to have to pay for. And then they'll come to our 2 council reps and say, if you want, and I would guess things like that, Mayor, that you're talking about, if that's not mandated by the province, then we'll be paying for it. So, but it'll be a busy year, as Councillor O'Neill said, it'll be
That's good
a
point.
lot going on.
And we'll be probably RFPing some of them. Because there are other agencies that provide that service. Whether they can do it as cheap or not is another thing. But okay, that's a good understanding. Anybody else have any further comments on environmental? Can I get a motion to approve it as with our understanding that we have now? Please. Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any further discussion?
We are just approving in principle. again,
In principle,
right?
yes.
Thank you.
All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. We're moving along.
So the next one I had on the list is planning, and the reason why I wanted to bring it back up, although it was already brought to the planning meeting, was just to reiterate where we are with the planning budget and also address one of Councillor Booth's questions when we did bring it forward at the planning meeting. So first of all, it is $191,000 budget, which is 10.7% increase over last year, so an 18,500 increase. That's a levy impact of 0.27%. And we did discuss that that we had budgeted for money to go into reserves for OP updates. There's a 3% COLA increase that is reflected on there, and there is an increase in legal fees due to past costs. Now, the one thing that Councillor Booth had asked about was the consultant fees within the legal and why that was an exact amount. And the reason for that is included in the consultant fees line, we had added in the cost for air photos. Apparently every 4 years, we have aerial shots taken, and that will be this year. And we already have the cost in for that at $1,190.54. So that was something that the planner had asked for us to add into that line. And that's all I have to say about planning. If you have any further questions, I can try and answer them. However, I know that council was given that opportunity with our planner at the planning meeting.
And Jennifer's not here, but just as a question, should we be purchasing drones someday so we don't have to take those pictures from hire someone to take those pictures? I'm sure we could use it for a lot of different things, but Troy, you got a comment?
Yeah, through you, your worship. I do know that Jennifer, I believe, has had meetings. I've had some meetings on drones. It is it still would be a cost, obviously, to purchase it and someone to use it, because you have to have a license. So
I have to have a license.
yeah, you have to have a license to run a zone for a drone for commercial and all that. So it is being discussed at different levels of buying maybe one for all of the county and utilizing it. So I think you'll see drone activity or a drone account line probably in 2024. So it is being looked at.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Can I, well, we've already did that in principle, haven't we? Okay, thank you for the update, Jennifer. Or sorry, Nicole.
That's okay. So we'll move forward to the Public Works budget, and I'll do a quick overview, and then I'll ask Brian to add any comments that he has. You're looking for tab number 18 in your binder. And that is page 22 of 59. So I'll just start out by mentioning that this is our largest budget within the municipal budget. We are showing a 4.9% increase in this budget over last year. So this year we're looking to fund 3.3 million from taxation versus 3.2 million in the prior year. So that's 155,159.44 increase, which is a levy impact of 2.25%. Within the increase over last year's budget, you will find that we did have an increase in staffing. So we did put a new position in place that was approved by council for an administrative assistant for Public Works. So you will see costs involved there. As well, there was a cost of living allowance increase. And that accounts for about $33,000 of the increase. There was a decrease in insurance, and as I mentioned earlier in the budget process, you're still seeing a decrease here, but maybe not as much as in other departments percentage wise, because I have put in a little bit extra for the Centerton building, which wasn't accounted for in Dave's initial cost quotes. So you still will see a decrease of just under 42,000 in insurance versus the budget for last year. There is a roads needs study that has been built into this budget as well, and that is at a cost of $15,000. You will also see a significant change in fuel. So we've added another $31,000 in fuel, and that is really due to the increase in fuel costs. We did find that it didn't take long in 2021, in 2022 before we were over our budget on fuel.
Nicole, the $31,000 that you mentioned, how much is a percentage? Is that over previous years? Just to get a feel for it,
I'd have to go back and calculate what it is. I know this year is 262,000.
I think that's, if you're going up 31,000 on 260, that's 12 or.
Yeah, you
13%,
actually
so-
have to take it off the base, but
Yeah, you're 12 or 13%, which is
yeah, it's not.
not non-realistic, I don't think. Well, it's unrealistic, but it shouldn't be going that high, but if that's the facts, I guess.
I mean, even just regular unleaded fuel did go up in the year by I think 6 cents a liter. So that's, yeah. So yeah, it's about 13%.
Do you have a question? Greg?
Just while you're going with this, I'll let you finish, and then before Brian comes, just a question for you about, I don't see the wages for the workers. Yesterday in the fire, it shows the admin wages, and then it showed the volunteer firefighter wages. I look now, maybe I'm just missing it, but I see public work admin wages, but I don't see the wages for the actual guys driving the truck.
So through you, Mayor Local, you will see that throughout the budget. So the guys' wages are distributed amongst the different processes that they do. So they're, you know, whether it's sweeping or paving or whatever they're doing, you'll see that those wages are distributed amongst those.
It's just a bit of a hassle if we have to sit there and go through every line and start adding up the wages. Maybe if it's possible that we could have a line that just shows what the total is,
I can
because
definitely get you that. We have to do that anyway for HR.
sorry to take
purposes,
you off.
No,
Here.
yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because I was trying to add them up and my calculator burned up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nicole. Yes,
So there's quite a significant decrease in contributions to reserves for this year, $170,000 decrease. And the main reason for that is one, we didn't put anything into reserves for building this year. We probably should start doing that within the next year or two again, to account for, 40 years down the road or whenever we think we need to replace any of those buildings again. But we didn't, and as well, last year there was an increase in contributions to reserves just to assist with the public works building. So there's also an increase in heating fuel, which is approximately $7,500. And so in addition to that, Brian's also prepared a few issue papers for the Public Works Department. One is for a new tandem truck for 300,000. That's one that we've already put funds into reserves for that. So that's totally funded from reserves. There's a new steamer, which is $25,000, 2 new water tanks at $48,000. And I think the only other one was the roads need study and then the phone upgrade. So those were the major items in this budget. And I am going to pass it off to Brian in case he's got anything that he'd like to add, and then we'll have open up for questions from council.
Can I ask you a question before you, because it's kind of more to do with the total budget, asset management. Should I have seen a line in there for asset management that I missed? And why I'm asking that is I think that it should be split up as if we have labor going into asset management, I'd like to be able to show that when we get asked how much we're spending for asset management.
Mayor Logue, are you requesting the personnel costs or costs of the software or?
No, work or personnel costs.
Okay, so personnel costs are in the Public Works admin line.
Yeah.
We did hire someone on who's doing asset management as well as administration for Public Works. I'm not sure with this being the first year, what percentage of our administrative assistants' time will be spent on the asset management. So truly my recommendation would be for us to monitor that so that in the coming years, we can establish how much is directly asset management versus administration. But if you want a certain percentage blocked off for that, I would
think
just need
eventually
direction.
maybe eventually we are going to have to show, we should show it. And, I don't know what the calculation was, but at the same time, we got a budget approved to hire that person. We must have had some idea how much time is going to be spent on asset management. Troy, you got a comment?
Through your worship, as Nicole was saying, it's all new, so we do know that asset management is a huge item that we do take serious, and it's going to require a lot of work. How much work, we don't have that exact number. I do know she has the software, she's been trained on the software. So with her time card, she'll gauge how much time she is putting in asset management versus Public Works admin. So we'll have a better idea as the year goes on. But we needed a dedicated person to take control, take the lead, and make sure the township is on par with asset management. So right now, I'm not sure how much time it is going to take, but I do know it's going to be quite a bit of time. So, but we will monitor.
Significant.
It will, sure.
Mayor Catherine?
Through you, Mayor Logal, to our treasurer. What happens when a budget goes over? So when I'm looking at what happens here and the numbers were 3 million and then their actual was 5 million, what happens in that case? For 2022 is where I'm looking at.
Are you looking at overall?
Yes.
Through you, Mayor, those numbers aren't final. So if we were over budget, I mean, we're reporting back to council. If we end up in a deficit position as a whole for the municipality, then that would end up coming out of reserves, and that'd be something that would come to council for approval for that to be done. However, that's part of the reason I've been bringing quarterly reporting back to council, taking monthly reporting to staff in order for us to have those discussions. So one of the things that you'll find, because I haven't done final adjustments here, is one of the huge things that's missing right there is a $3 million debenture that we received December 15th that isn't showing as a revenue item there. So right off the hop, you can take that $5 million number and take $3 million off there.
Okay, well,
So-
that was my next question, was about the debenture and how it shows up here in this budget.
So through you, Mayor, what will happen is once I've done the adjustments, you'll see the $3 million coming in from the debenture. And then any funds we didn't use, so we had a little over 500,000 that still was to be spent for that public works project. So I will move that into the building reserve for 2022. And then as the remainder of the expenditures come through for that public works building, we will pull the remainder of those funds out of that reserve account.
Okay, and I have one
Sure.
last one for our treasurer. I just want to concur with what Councillor Booth and Mayor Logo. I feel like this is set up for management, and I would really like to see something coming forward to us as council set up for governance, where we're looking at the big picture, the wages completely, that type of thing, rather than spread out in the way that it is spread out. So
If I could, Mary Catherine, I'll make one other comment too. I couldn't figure out why we were splitting it up so fine, because it's very, very difficult to see it all. But if you look at asset management, that's probably the biggest reason why, because you have to know how much you're spending on this truck and that truck and how much it's maintenance, how much is
absolutely
gas.
for
And
management.
that's good
Good.
stuff. And I think we all like to see that, but we just like to be able to compare it with the overall costs as well.
So through you, Mayor, that is something Brian and I have spoke about, is that really we'd like to see it broken down more where we're actually showing exactly what road we've, spent
Yeah.
the costs on. So that's somewhere we'd like to get to. But I can understand from council standpoint, maybe some of the groupings when reporting it for budget purposes would be nicer to be able to see, wages and things like that group. So we will have an overall summary of all departments as far as salaries and that when I come back on February 16th. Again, much like the Parks and Rec budget, may not be able to get into enough detail to get this housekeeping done, but that's absolutely, that feedback is great, and we can look at that maybe for next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Booth, you have a comment?
It's okay, Councillor O'Neill asked the exact questions I had, so that was good. Thank you.
And that would be, I could concur with that, Mayor Logal, as well. I think when we have the numbers, when we're not searching for all the totals of wages and all that, it gives us a bigger picture.
Go ahead, Councillor Ainsworth.
Through you, your worship. So I have a hard time with this part of the budget. To the fact that we've already spent the $3 million for the building and probably $2.5 million in interest. And this one here's $5.5 million. So there's $11 million that we spent on public works this year. I would have hoped that I would have seen this budget come back with just an operating cost and nothing else, but I don't see that. So I can't accept any of it.
I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. We don't quite understand, but I think we should proceed, and here's some of the details on what Brian's planning on doing. Is that okay? Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, again, Nicole went over at a high level there. The only couple things one thing that's missing out of there is under capital and stuff that I would like that you don't have in this package, that you will have at the next budget meeting, is a detailed list of all the capital road projects and the dollar figures for each of those. The foreman and I have met and went over all the projects, but we're just compiling all the cost, emulsion and gravel and stuff like that. So we have a list of roads. We're just we got to take that money I proposed in the budget, if council passed that, or In previous, it was $750,000 for capital projects, but we added 10%, so I think it took to 825. But there'll be a detailed list of, full reconstruction projects as well as, resurfacing projects, which roughly is around, there's around 25 kilometers of roads that would be in there, probably, 7 or 8 for full reconstruction and, 17, maybe kilometers, to 18 kilometers for a single layer of surface treatment for maintenance and that. So that's in your capital projects, but there will be more detail with the roads that I'm proposing to council that we would do next time. Yeah, we did get an increase in the OSIP funding. What's that? What was the percentage? 15%. So a lot of our funding for the Public Works Department does come from government funding, is OCIF funding and the federal gas tax. If, we're ever to lose those two, funding, grants or money from the government, the township would be, really having a hard time to raise taxes to the amount they would need to actually look after the road system. So, there's very little, that actually comes out of taxation for the road projects. Most of it's, funded, and Nicole has to, once that money's spent, actually send the detail back to the agencies on how we spent the funding, on what roads and stuff like that. So, the gas tax, can I forget what it is, Nicole? It's so anyways, those are two big fundings that help the Public Works, department get things done. And then as well, I would like to have an updated, forecast on our equipment and stuff like that for you. And I'm shooting to have that done with my admin assistant for the next meeting as well. And it'd be like a 1 to 20 year plan, like a lot of the dump trucks and that need replaced, and have an amortization of those vehicles and stuff like that. So, but I can answer, or I'll try to answer any questions you may have on any individual lines right now.
Okay, I think we're ready to go there, Brian. I'll ask the first one. I'm concerned that we're not putting nothing into capital reserves for equipment. I think we're gonna get caught with our pants down if we, because I know we kind of like to replace a truck every other year. And I'm concerned that if we don't have it, we're gonna get really hit 2 years from now. That's the first comment I have. And the second one, well, since it's open here, the steamer. It looks like we use about how many days a year would you use that?
Yes, Mayor Logo. The steamer is one of those pieces of equipment that, you may not even use it in a year. It depends on the kind of spring and the weather conditions and the melt and stuff like that. Depends on how much ice you get in your, entrance culverts, cross culverts. But when you do need it, you need 2 or 3 of them. And, we only have the one steamer. It's a 1980. Again, it got used last year. But again, with having the size of the township, there can be an issue. Like if we don't get those culverts unthawed quickly, if you get a big, like the way the weather's up and down, like next week's called for mild temperature, if you get a good melt and rain and the culverts are full ice, we got to get it and thaw those. So, it is strongly recommended to get the second one. It is something that might sit for a year, but the year we do need it, we need 2 of them for sure.
Can you rent them?
You probably could, but it's like a high demand thing. When we need that machine, everyone else needs the machine, I guess is my.
Okay, I think and I know last year was a typical year now, or not, we use it for $1,000 worth of wages. So that to me would be, it probably takes 2 people, so probably use 2 or 3 days at the most.
Again, I'm gonna try to do a better allocation of the wages this year and stuff like that, like breaking it down, especially with asset management. I do have a pretty good background with asset management and allocating cost to projects. And that's why we do have the wages broken out. And eventually we're gonna have machine time and all that as well, so that we can actually tell how much, a road project or a maintenance project actually cost. The timesheets, we do need a little bit of an adjustment or tweak with them too. So I'm not saying that those wages are bang on, Mayor Logo, but, last year wasn't a bad year either, but there is years when you do need them and stuff like that. Again, this is the other ones, like I said, it's almost 40 years old right now and stuff like that as well. So.
I think, and that does bring up, and we've talked a little bit, you weren't here, but we're talking a little bit like lean management and making decisions and getting people to help us do the right thing, but if we haven't got good data to start with. And I think that's very critical that you do get good data. Otherwise, I'm gonna send you on a goose chase. And it's probably sending it the wrong way, because what you put into the soup is what comes out of the soup. Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
So a couple of questions through you, your worship. First of all, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I will support the idea of the steamer because I can tell other council members this came up in 2019 when somebody else was the public works manager and we didn't okay it then. So this is like 5-6 years this has been running that they need this. And I would agree the one that we have is 40 something years old. And when you need them, you need 2 or 3, not just one. So I would support that when we get to that, but just a couple of questions through you, your worship, to Brian. Brian, on the first page, page 22 of 59, it talks about admin conference training miles and mileage and meals and stuff like that. So how many staff is that covering for? It's 12,500. Page 22 of 59, the very first one.
I think we have the total in the notes there is 12 staff.
So I guess my question would be, and this I guess could be to Troy or to the treasurer, that is, in the last couple of days when we're talking about training, staff at other buildings are getting $2,000 per person, or 3 if you're a manager. We've got 12 people here and it looks like they're only getting $1,000. So I just hope that we're looking at, just because you're a public works person, that you're treated the same as everybody else. And this is not against you, Brian. This is, I guess, the corporation as a whole. To me, it looks like the blue collar guys are getting $1,000 a year for training. And that's it.
Yes, through you, Mayor Logo. Yeah, I think we've accounted for around 550 for the full-time staff, $300 for the part-time staff, and 150 for the students. A lot of our training, there's a couple courses that a few of them will go away that cost more, but a lot of our training for the public works is I don't want to call it like bulk training. So we do a lot of it in-house or do it with the county. So we do see a little savings, but it may be a little low, but I guess if everyone else, yeah, we are low for 2,000 versus 550 per employee. But anyways, previously the budget's been around around that amount. So I kind of kept it the same, but
Okay, just a concern because I came from the blue collar side and I don't think we treat them the same, right? And if we're going to offer office staff $2,000 or anybody else, if you're in the Parks and Rec in that, then I think we should be seriously looking at upping it up, because I know Troy, you can confirm last year, the year before, you were talking about our age of our public works people are getting up there, and we need to start sending some of the young people to greater school and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that we're not missing the mark on that. And I can't believe I'm saying to up it, but I am.
through you, Mayor Logo, just a comment. Yeah, and some of that training had already started before I started. The previous road manager did have a course book, so some of our newer staff did do the greater course, and they do want to register a couple to road school, a couple for new employees, and that's up in Guelph in May. So we are getting the newer employees that don't have the training sent to road school. That's a 2-year course, so that's in their counselor booth. So
Okay, and just one other one. On page 24 of 58, it talks about the sidewalk plowing and sanding contracted services, $49,000 for 2 contractors for winter sidewalk in Grafton and Roseneath, which we've seen in the last few days here. Is there an RFP put out for that then? I don't recall ever seeing an RFP. That's quite a large amount of money. It's over the $5,000. There should be an RFP put out for that.
through you, Mayor Logo, no, there wasn't. There hasn't been in the past. It's been the same contractors have been doing, the one in the north and the one in the south, but moving forward, next year we could definitely put out an RFP for those services, Councillor Booth.
Yeah, I think that's important because we're breaking our own bylaws. Then anything I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is that not right, Nicole? Anything over 5,000 should be an RFP put out?
I believe you're correct on that. I don't know whether it's 5,000 for RFP, but certainly for quote. I think when you're getting up over like 50,000, I would have to pull it. I've got it sitting on my desk downstairs.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Thank you, Brian.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Through you, Mayor, I just wanted to answer your question from the beginning there about money going into reserves for equipment. And we have annually been putting funds away for the public works equipment. And we do have in the budget for this year, $213,200 going in, and that's the same as what we had put in last year for the equipment. In addition, we're putting in $4,000 a year towards doing a roads needs study. And then we're also putting funds away for dredging and winter maintenance at 69,000, and extreme weather events. We added an additional amount of 12,500. So just so you're aware, those are some of the things that we're regularly putting funds.
So we
away
are
for.
putting a couple $100,000 roughly for
Yes.
major equipment.
Correct.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Logal. Nicole, do you have the breakdown for the contracted snow plowing of the sidewalks of what it's costing Grafton and what it's costing Roseneath?
We do have that, yes. There are two different contracts, so they're individually invoiced so that we can get those numbers, yes.
Mike, you have a comment?
Pardon me?
Did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Go
okay. Through your worship. I got a number of things here, but I'm only gonna pick out a few of them. So the steamer, like, have we ever thought of putting together like a partnership with our adjoining neighbors where we could share equipment?
There is some specific piece of equipment I know that has been shared with townships in the county before. Like I kind of mentioned before, and it's when you need this steamer, your neighbor needs the steamer. So that's the steamer is one piece of equipment that would be really hard, Councilor Ainsworth, to share because if we need it, the weather's similar in this area and the culverts, the ice is, it's one piece of machine that you couldn't share really. Like there may be other ones, but that's one that I really wouldn't recommend that we could share.
I just wonder if some of these culverts that are freezing up and plugging need to be ripped out and redone again, ditching and stuff properly around, and maybe a bigger culvert so that you wouldn't have this issue all the time.
Through your Mayor Logo. Yeah, there's some definitely that been in the ground a long time that have, but that may be a third or quarter or a third or half full of material. But this even happens on ones that are actually a brand new culvert installed with no dirt in it. It just depends on a lot of things, wind and stuff like that as well and stuff. But there's no real rationale to it, but the ones that need replaced definitely is a more of a major problem. So if we can, replace some, that would definitely help.
So, yeah, that would be great. So what is our standard of care for the roads in the winter time?
Like our level of through your Mayor Logo, like our level of service, you mean, for our
Yes.
roads?
Yeah.
We follow our maintenance standards that are put down from the government. So again, the level of services used to be called the minimum maintenance standards. Now it's the maintenance standards. But they go by the classification of your road. So again, there's class 1 to 6 in the roads. All we call them township basically has class 6, 5s, and 4s. Meaning, for example, class 1s is more your 401. The county has a lot of class 2s and 3s, and that's why they're on top of those roads sooner. There's like snow accumulation. It's like 8 centimeters. You got so much time, but to get that cleaned off. But realistically, if you say had 8 centimeters of snow and you left it for 4 hours and then went and cleaned it, well, we all know it's all driven on then and compacted down. It's harder to get off and stuff like that. So we do meet all the time our level service and probably exceed it in most cases.
Well, I know about the other councils, that we all live in different spots of the municipality, but in the last 2 days, I've seen a plow go down my road probably down and back 8 times. And we haven't had any snow. And a large part of this budget is fuel. And I wonder if it's, like, I don't understand it. I mean, they came by this morning and they didn't do anything different than they did yesterday.
Through you, Mayor Logal. Yes, today they were out because there's drifting, so, there's some places, Councilor Ainsworth, like yourselves, maybe in front of your area, the road might be, dry pavement, bare and push back. But then up further in Shelter Valley where there's a more open spot and that, so, they'd have to go across, so. Again, it's just due diligence. I know we do, winter maintenance is a large budget. But I've seen in the past here, there's been very little, I don't think previous me coming as well as lawsuits or liability or someone getting hurt. So, we try to prevent that, and drifting is a big one. There's some spots where it drifts. I'll give example of a Macklin Road just beyond a hill there and stuff like that. So if that gets out into the lane and, to meet and stuff like that. So it might not look like nothing needs to be done, maybe in front of your place, for example, or around your area. But there's other spots that may need on that road, and it's just and the size of township, you just, we can't, or, I don't recommend, just jumping around. You basically go out and you cover your road, and you make sure everything's pushed back and stuff like that. So, but that's what today was more some drifting, and there was a couple spots I know on that Shelter Valley that the operator had to do, but maybe nothing in front of your place.
Always a concern when I see it, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. So the phone money for $6,000, should we actually, because I know we talked about phone issues here, even with the offices here. So we should not just have one budget for all of it. And so that would be a question. And you have in here two large buildings.
Sorry, through what page are you on there, Councilor?
I'm just in my notes here, sorry.
I think I remember the notes I made for large building. I think I commented just because of maybe the heat, the size of building. I think I put that under that, the larger the building, the more gas. I think that was basically for Centerton. I know the heating expense at Roseneath went up in the last couple of years with the cost of propane. That's how it's heated up there. So I think that's where I had the comments under. Is that?
Well, I wrote it down, so I thought it looked like you wanted 2 more large buildings. In the Centerton yard.
I think what he was saying was because of the larger buildings, he was going to need more heat, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a very good point. It's not only the cost to build those buildings, it's the upkeep that hits you forever and ever. Yeah, through you, Mayor Logal. Yeah, Nicole just popped it up here. That was under hydro for the Centerton yard and the heating fuel, Councilor Ainsworth. That's what I had. So the larger building note, maybe it could be more detailed, but that's what I meant. There'd be more cost to the size of the building.
Okay. And I know we talked about this a couple of times, but it would have been nice to see, and I don't know, maybe you're waiting for the assessment, but if we would have had a roads priority list that we could have put together.
Through you, Mayor Logal. So just to make sure I understand you right. So I was going to bring you a list of the proposed projects that I'm planning for 2023. Is that what you're?
Yep.
Okay. My apologies for that. Again, it's not done. It's very close to being done. And you'll have that for your next meeting or even sooner if I can get it out to you, but I'll definitely have it for your next meeting. You'll have a breakdown of the proposed roads that myself and staff have, been going through for the last, couple months.
Okay, great. And one last question. So we've obviously hired work out to other companies. I don't see that there.
Services.
Yep. Through you, Mayor Logal. Yes, Councilor Ainsworth, there's most of our construction costs for capital. Majority of it is in-house. Most of it we do ourselves with our own staff and equipment, our tandems, our rubber tired excavator loaders. Some of the external costs that are done by contractors, for example, would be the Northumberland County doing our surface treatment on our roads. And then sometimes we use other outside contractors like Miller and Greenwood. And then there's the actual local contractors that we use for that if we don't have enough staff time or other projects, hauling gravel from our local. So some of the pits and all that around here. So the local contractors, the rentals or rental centers for rollers and stuff like that. But that's basically it. Equipment that we don't have, like a roller, gravel, the tar and chip that goes down, or if it's a pavement application, it could be a couple of the big paving companies. So. And dust control, yeah, sorry, thanks, Nicole. Dust control, like the liquid calcium that goes on the gravel roads to keep the dust down during the summer months. That's contracted out. We do all the prep work, the grading, the watering with all our in-house staff, and then there's an external contract that comes in and puts the liquid down for the dust control and harden up the gravel roads for the summer months.
Okay, and just maybe my last question for our CAO. A lot of the departments have in here, like, GPSing and stuff where is there not anything nowadays that one software system looks after all of it instead of getting 2 or 3 different ones?
Through your mayor, we have two software programs, one for which is called Mesh, and that is for work orders, scheduling, stuff like that. And the other is ACE, that is for GPSing. Is that what you're asking? Can it be combined?
Yeah.
We have been in the discussions with, I don't want to say which group, but we are in discussions with one of those companies. They are at the beginning stages of combining everything. So I agree. And I think you'll see in 2024, it all go to one company. So when I was in Brian's seat, I did explore software, but at that time the price was just way too big for this township to pay for. So we have 2 smaller programs, software packages. Like I said, it's a common thing. It's out there, so the price is coming down. And the smaller companies, there are companies that cater to smaller township with smaller budgets. And in 2024, you'll see it combined to one. And yeah, so. I'll leave it
So
at
we
that.
saying that maybe all this software and stuff should be put on the back burner? instead of
No, I
buying-
think you still need it for liability reasons. We'll need it for 2023 for sure. But there'll be a plan put in place for 2024 where we can combine it and hopefully be able to save some money. But it's something that cannot and should not be cut for liability reasons. So we need to be able to track, the trucks, plow up, plow down, it's all tracked and data is collected. It's came into play where I've needed it in the past, so it's well worth its money for now. But we have explored combining it to one company and we're almost there. And I think that we're also looking at, I know other neighboring townships are looking at the same program, so we may be able to go together and get the price even down farther. But it does take a little bit of time. We're in the works, we're in the planning stages, and I think in 2024 it'll be done.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor Lowell, to Mr. McMillan. Oh, you mentioned training of new staff and grading courses and that. Would they not come with those courses already? When you hire somebody, would they not come with the specs that you need for that operator?
Through you, Mayor Lowell. Yes, Deputy Mayor Stover. When we do go out for, if someone does retire, like say a senior or grader operator, and we don't have any on staff and not currently, we would definitely advertise for someone that has grading experience. These were staff that we had that were trained before I got here were in-house. So they moved up and wanted to be grader operators. So they were getting some seat time with some of the senior staff, and they've learned a bit, and then we've actually put them on the course. So that's what's happened here. But if you don't have anyone and stuff like that when we go out, we're not going to we wouldn't start fresh. We try to hire someone that is a seasoned operator that would be able to get the job done, quick.
And I'm not sure if this is the place to put in my 2 cents when you're talking about succession planning and everything. On Monday morning, I sat here with Junior Minister Williams, I think, Mr. Maccini, and a lot of women entrepreneurs and some women trying to enter into the workforce in non traditional roles, shall we say. It would be nice to see some of our departments picking up that, because there is funding available for that. So I would really look forward to any initiatives that the Public Works Department would bring forward in that, on that topic.
Through you, Mayor Logal, yes, you're actually seeing, I know, women that are in the public works, workforce as operators, but even that have moved up and actually are, road superintendents or directors of public works. So, I'd say in the last 20 years, there's been, a lot more women come into the public works, and, it's good to see. It's good to see for sure.
And if I may, just one more comment. The other comment that was made, that women that go into those non-traditional roles only last 4 years because of the issues that they face in those roles. I'm not saying that would ever happen here, but that's just something else to take to the table, and be aware of.
Yep, I appreciate those comments, and that's something you definitely gotta, worry about, I guess. Just right now, even us, the Public Works Department that we have here right now, out of the Centerton shop, we've added 2 female staff up there right now that, aren't out as operators, but that are working and mingling with our staff right now. And what I can say so far, it's all been positive with the male staff and the female staff, with them getting along and being polite. Anyways, it's going very well, I guess, with the mix. I'd say that right now. So
Thank you.
Good points, Deputy Mayor, particularly with the women, and they're very capable of doing a lot of those jobs, and you may actually get a good mix and learn from each other even.
And
they do
the
have-
funding, and the funding that could
And the
be
funding, too.
available for bringing on.
Yeah.
new
I got a couple of other things, a bit more specific. The culverts, like, Councillor Angel was mentioning. There is some on Bowmanton Road, and I don't know if you've seen them or not, but, where there's only this much, skylight at the top, I guess is the proper word, the rest is full of gravel. Is it better to pull them out and pull them out, or can you empty them? And I don't know how any ice could move along down through there when it's only this much from the top.
yeah, I'm not sure what section was it on, a gravel section or hard top section of
Hard top,
hard top.
right in the very corner of Bowmanton and 45.
Okay, again, with culverts underneath hard top road, we do everything we could to
Oh, it's
try.
not underneath, it's just on the, oh, it's just just,
An entrance culvert?
yeah.
Oh,
not
sorry.
Yeah,
I thought you meant a cross culvert, sorry, my
No, no, no,
apologies.
no.
Okay, so an entrance culvert and stuff like that. So, yeah, we would do our best to try to get it cleaned out with digging both ends out or possibly flushing it out. But sometimes there's that much dirt in it and the culvert looks bad, like looks very aged, or the ground's been very acidic and has ate the bottom of the steel culvert out, some of that. It is just best to replace the culvert, Mayor Logo.
sweeping is pretty expensive. Sweeping? Do we get our money's worth out of that? I'm just, and is it good practice to do that on some of our small roads? I think in town ones, like in front of my place.
Well, through you, Mayor Logo, I wouldn't want you phoning me complaining about your clothes on the phone line getting, dusty and stuff like that. So, but no, one of the main, that's just a little funny humor, sorry. But really the sweeping is a big thing. We do the majority of it in-house, again, with all our own equipment, with our sweepers on our machines. There is some that we bring in an outside contractor that does some of the hamlets and stuff. Couple reasons why we picked the winter sand up is one is for dust to get it down. Like, we go from one extreme to the other. We got dirty roads and messy roads in the wintertime. We're putting the sand down to keep the vehicle safe. And the next minute, then the sun comes out and it gets all dusty and blowing. So we want to get it off for that reason. But then if we don't get it cleaned up and picked up, then you start it gets out to the edges and pushed off the edge of roads. And this is how you get your high shoulders on your roads. And the township here is actually in really good shape, but if we don't continue to do that, then you get a high level of dirt along the side of the road, and the water can't get off the road into the ditches, through the culverts, and it starts running along the side of your roads and eating and deteriorating the side of your roads. It's bad on gravel, but it's even worse on hardtop roads because then it starts tearing into your prime and all that too as well. So,
Unfortunately, there's a lot of it that's already this high above the road anyways, and particularly in front of my house. And
Yeah.
I don't like to make it a personal thing or nothing like that, but and the other thing, and I don't know much about it, but I was told by someone who should know a lot about it. He works for the county, he said, you really gotta watch these contractors that do the sweepings because they don't go in very far because it wears the brushes out real quick. And just a comment.
so again, I'll just sorry, Mike, I'll just comment a little more on that, I guess. Yeah, there is lots of spots that say from previous years, but even a long time ago, that does have berms. I call them berms in the side of the road. And we are trying to get a plan to get it. Some of those roads are going to be rebuilt hopefully soon too. So we'll get rid of that time. But ones that are causing us problems, especially on hills, we get torrential downpours or rains with the spring thaw. If we don't get those shoulders off, then we're constantly going back year after year, buying more gravel, putting it down or replacing or patching the prime. So it's very important we try to look after our current roads and our existing roads for that sand to be off the roads.
I agree. Just to carry on with what Mike was saying, and I've got to say it, I think there's $850,000 we're going to spend, or your proposal to spend on roads this year. I can remember 10 years ago when Troy used to come and would have been, he didn't put, or well, I shouldn't say he didn't put one in, but he pretty well knew when we've been through the budget process, whatever was left, that we didn't want, whatever we had left, which might have been 150,000 or 200, but that's about all it was. And it was very difficult for him to prepare a budget, knowing that he wasn't going to get much money. But I think with $850,000, that's a pretty big expense. And just to say what Mike was saying, it is important that council know what we're going to spend that on, because we got to, just like you, we have to answer to the public.
Yes, through Mayor Lowell, just to go a little bit more on the road project. So again, we got roughly 435 kilometers of roads in the township mixed with gravel, surface treatment, hardtop. So out of that $850,000, what you'll see coming back to you is probably around 25 to 27 kilometers of roads that we're planning on doing this year. What we'd like to do if council sees fit to pass the budget with that amount in it. And that works out to about, say, 5% of our current road network. And, so you'll see when I do bring back to a long-term plan on our roads, like a 10, 15, 20-year plan, that once you rebuild these roads and, you put the double layer of surface treatment on, then you need to be going back anywhere from 8 to 12 years to put another single layer on. So it's very important that we kind of put a schedule and like our equipment as well, that we're trying the best we can with the funds we have to do that, to stay on top. Because once these roads go past the point of return that you can't just do the maintenance on, then you're into double to 60 to 70% more to actually do the full reconstruction on the road.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And I have one final comment, and it's just on regarding the trucks. We want to replace a new truck, and I can understand that. We want to, it looks like you want to replace one that's 2000 and whether take out the one that's 2002, I believe it was. I was noticing something like the 2006, had spent almost twice as much on maintenance on that one as we had on the 2002 one over the last 2 years. I think it was 15,000 and 36,000 for the one that was 2006. And then I was looking at a little bit more in detail, and I love the details. But it looked like you were spending about $10,000 or $12,000 on trucks for fuel that were a little bit newer than the older ones. And the older ones, so I'm assuming, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming you're using those new trucks most of the time, and the old trucks you're trying to save from and just use them for snow plowing. Is that kind of correct?
Yes, Mayor Logo, that is bang on.
And I guess my question is before you, if we know a truck's going to go bad and we're going to have to put it down, whatever, I guess like be more like a horse and you're putting it down. Would we not be smarter to run the heck out of that truck until it's ready to go, and then save some of the life on those newer trucks? That's just something for you to think about.
Yep, again, I really like to bring the forward to equipment replacement plan to you. The average municipalities in the county replace their tandem trucks at the earliest at 10 years and some are maybe as high as 15. As you'll see some of these trucks. And the reason why we're not is just it's expensive. I know that we can't the township can't afford to replace these trucks every 10 years or even up to 15. But a couple of the trucks I'm looking at replacing are in the 18 to 21-year-old, so they're getting old. And those trucks are the ones that you're right, that we're only using really during the winter months. The ones in the newer ones are the ones we're running 12 months of the year. They're doing the plowing. They're actually putting the water tank in the back and was doing the watering for the gravel for dust control of the graders. The ones that are hauling the gravel, and we kind of save those older ones for the winter months that they're just getting a less time in them.
And it's 220, I don't know, what's a good life for a truck? As far as kilometers, the age, I don't know how much that matters, but 229,000 kilometers, is that a lot?
It is, but then again, it depends on how well the truck's looked after and stuff like that too. And that's moving forward.
And that comes back to asset management, not
Yeah.
gonna keep hammering that. but
So that's
what
what, and that's what we're trying to do is, with the new shop, it was hard for the past staff to, do a good job looking after their vehicles when they had them all, crammed in that old shop and the wings were up and stuff like that. And they really couldn't do, proper circle checks inside, the lighting. So with the new shop, these trucks sitting inside, using the wash bay and cleaned up and stuff like that. So it's going to be very important. And we're going to have, strict policy on the guys keeping their vehicles cleaned and the maintenance, the greasing and stuff like that, because these vehicles and equipment aren't cheap and we can't afford to replace them even as early as they should, but with the dollars we have. So
Well, if we can get another year out of them, that's a big savings as far as I'm concerned. Anybody else have anything? Mary Catherine, go ahead. You've been sitting for a while.
Okay, I have three through you, Mayor Logal, to Public Works. The first is looking at some expenses and the changes in the last couple of years. So when we look at the admin wages from the actual in 2021 and the proposal for 2023, that's a $210,000 increase in admin wages. And if we look at that and put the other things, that's over 300,000 in mid wages. We also have the new debenture costs, which is 180,000 this coming year. So what we're looking at there is close to $500,000 removed from frontline service for our roads. Right? We've got to pay for it somewhere. It's got to be coming from the frontline service, like, unless I'm misunderstanding, like, where did that $500,000 come from?
So again, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure how those wages, Nicole can speak to them, how they're broken out there, but the shop and stuff like that, I guess that's, moving forward to health, like having the equipment, all that stuff being, clean and staff working on it, it was definitely, the shop was definitely needed, I guess I would say, but it is going to be an impact on money spent, outside of the, shop, like out in the roads. So that's your comment.
Yeah, and I think every time that councils and that, it was the previous council, but when you look at that new position, and I am very excited that there's going to be an asset management plan coming forward next year. But if we continue that position over the 4 years that we're on council, we're well over $300,000. So when these proposals come forward, we've got to, and I'm speaking to my fellow councillors here, we've got to be looking at what's the carry forward costs from those decisions, and can we afford the carry forward costs? And that was also the interest costs, which Councillor Ainsworth has already identified. That that's a pretty tough one for me, because I like to pay for things when I can afford to pay for things and not use debentures. Ash trees, so I'm moving on to my second one. Ash trees.
Just want me to explain more on the ash trees, or?
Just that they're falling on the roads and they're a hazard and those types of things,
Yeah.
and I'm not seeing them anywhere.
Well, I did anyways, through you, Mayor Logal, just under Councillor O'Neill, if you go under your brushing
It's under brushing.
Yeah,
okay.
and I think I just, it's 10 page, I don't know what page it is,
I think there was two places that you were showing.
but I did have there's a fairly large budget similar to last year of about 122,750. And that is for brush cutting, the ash trees, the amount of calls I get for ash trees, and we've been kind of working them on as a liability, kind of priority first, which ones are more of a hazard to the right of way and or a house or, cars like that. But I did mention ash, even some of the pine, but the ash tree, the emerald ash is the big one that's, when there is a pile of ash trees in the township, but there is quite a bit of money in there this year for that, Councillor O'Neill.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, because that
We
is
do
something
that.
I get asked often.
Can I just ask, are we doing that ourselves or do we have to hire out to do that? Or could we be doing it a different way?
We do have some very good staff that are good with chainsaws and cutting. And so we do try to do as much as we can that they can do safely. A lot of stuff, if there's, no hydro poles, wires and stuff like that, we'll try to do as much as we can ourselves in-house. Usually during the fall and winter months when it's cooler and stuff. But there is quite a few of these trees that are big, and everywhere there's a lot of electric, like, hydro wires and stuff like that, or something that could go wrong. So we have the trained professionals with bucket trucks go on, but we do try to do a lot ourselves, but a lot of this is external contracts do this work.
So it's the bucket trucks that you're really missing. Is the
Well, some of them have to be, brought down and stuff.
go ahead, Mayor Catherine.
And my third one is regarding the outstanding water tank that is to be put in at the Centerton Works, the new build. I understand we have a little bit of a logistics problem with those tanks in terms of right now we have 2 large tanks and the outstanding is a half tank. But if we install that half tank, what I've been told anyway, is that instead of having 2 full tanks, which is 4 half tanks, we would end up with 3 half tanks because the other 2 can't fill beyond the half that is in the 3rd tank. Is that?
Yes, through you, Mayor Logo. Yes, Councillor Neil, right now there is an issue. Those were the 3 tanks and the specific sizes that were spec for this job. But the smaller tank that's at the end, there needs to be a cap put on it so that tank can fill. Right now, there's a float in it. And when it gets full right now, it'll only fill the other 2 large tanks, the same level as the small tank. But if we cap that top tank so the water can fill right till it gets full, then once that tank fills, it'll go in the other tanks and keep filling the 2 larger tanks. So we can solve the problem that is right now, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so you are aware of that problem?
We are aware of the problem and we're acting on it.
Through you, your worship, and I want to reiterate a couple things that you brought up. So, and for Brian, the fire department, when they get rid of a couple of their trucks, they might only have like 10,000-15,000 kilometers on them. Could we not take one of them and turn them into a water truck or something for you instead of buying a new one?
There would be cost. Could be looked at, I guess, maybe some for other older. If we just used a water truck, but there'd be a lot of fabrication that done. Like in these trucks, when we buy these trucks right now, say we're using $300,000. Out of that $300,000, about $150,000, half of 50% of it is the cabin chassis. The other $150,000 is actually the equipment, the snowplow box, the wing, all the hydraulics go with it. So there would be a lot of modification.
Would you look into that?
Like
Just to-
we could
and give
we
us
could
a-
look into it, and it could be maybe something used. And the fire department has approached us before, which is in our policy too, to when you're getting rid of equipment, surplus equipment and stuff like that. Some of them may be able to use for a water truck or something like that, but yeah.
I think Troy wants to see that.
Through you, your mayor, are you talking about the water tanks? Because Brian was requesting a couple water tanks. Is that where you're going with?
Well, I
Instead
think
of purchasing the 2 water tanks, take a used fire truck. So
Yeah.
you're not talking converting a fire truck into a snowplow.
well, if like say if our big fire truck came on the market, I would take a snowplow, no problem. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
Brian can investigate that, but I
I
thought you
can.
were talking about the actual 2 water tanks.
but I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we order a water truck, we use our existing tank. If the tank is okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
so he could just take take the chassis and, you know, put his own tank on it.
Yeah, for a water truck, yeah. Yeah, there.
That might be an
Right.
that could be an option
Yeah.
for the water.
Yeah,
stuff
for
like
sure.
that Down the road for
For
sure.
sure. That,
That
that
can be
could
looked
be
at.
an option.
Yeah.
Water truck, get a used or an older fire truck, you know, for watering gravel roads or whatever. But I have never seen in my entire time at Public Works, a fire truck that is converted to a snowplow. But definitely Public Works could use a fire truck for a water truck and in Parks and Rec, watering sod, watering flowers. I've seen multiple uses of old fire trucks. So for sure, it could be
Right on.
used within the, you know, the township.
And my last comment is these culvert things. So Troy and Brian, we've talked about it 3 or 4 times. It's coming up at our next council meeting in our tour. I would hope that we would get together and get some of these culverts fixed that are flooding people's property out every spring. We got one right here on Aird Street that he tells me that he's had to replace his furnace because he got flooded out. I would hope that that gets fixed before it happens again. And 2 or 3 other throughout the municipality. Well, obviously there's probably more, but I just wanted to bring that up, that I hope that we can get that resolved.
Through you, Mayor Lowe, Councilor Ainsworth, if you, for example, the other ones, I know the one you're talking about on Aird Street. If you have those lists of those other ones that there's probably lots, but if there's a list of 3 or 4 that have been got attention or people, can you give me those please and those addresses? Thank you.
It's actually in our next meeting. Madam Clerk. Our culverts are actually in our next meeting, right? In our tour. I think.
Sorry, the minutes from the road tour, yes.
Deputy Mayor, do you have anything?
Yes, I just, I don't know if I missed it or not, oh, got all my paper spread all over here. The cost of a roads need study, what is the cost of that gonna be?
The cost I've estimated, and that's just I've got it from a local one that's did in the past, is $15,000.
And this isn't anything that you can do in-house?
No, it's something that, unless you're a very large region that has engineers on staff, it's something you contract out. It's like I said, the amount of money is based on the size of your municipality and how many roads they got to go across. So a smaller municipality, you know, with 1/3 of the roads, it might be 5,000 or 7,000, but the size of ours, that's what they're telling me is around 15, because they go across, do an assessment. Again, it is a very good working document that's done every 5 years that can help the municipality and the Public Works Department plan for roads in the future, as well as back up some of our fundings that come through. Some of the stuff for shovel ready projects, they want to have roads need study or an engineer's recommendation behind them. So that's where it helps. Deputy Mayor Stover.
Through your Mayor Local, to Mr. McMillan, just wondering, I didn't really get when you mentioned a logistics issue with the tanks. Were the right tanks not ordered?
Yes, the right tanks were ordered, just the one tank, between the plumbing and the elevation of the tank putting in, there was, it was messed up. So it needs to be corrected,
What do you mean messed up?
not installed properly,
Pardon?
not installed properly.
And who would have installed them?
Our staff did it internally. We did it ourselves.
That's it.
Go ahead.
Just through you, your worship, to Brian, just so you know, Brian, we did discuss with the fire department yesterday that they do have a tanker truck 481 that they were looking at possibly selling, and we were looking in, maybe you can discuss with the fire chief that like Councillor Ainsworth said, that one sounded to me yesterday could probably be easily converted to, like Troy said, the one that just waters the gravel and does stuff like that when they go around to the roads. So
Yeah, and
and it's
Nicole,
only got 23,000 on it, so it's probably nice and spanking
Yeah.
new. You won't be used to that in the public works, nice and shiny, but
okay. Yeah, and the only other thing I just comment on the tanks. So currently the 2 tanks that we want to replace. So right now those tanks slide in the back of the dump trucks, and they actually go into over again, because these trucks do get their winter maintenance, then come spring they're watering for the grader. So those 2 tanks usually go in our newest trucks for the kilometer reasons and stuff. So I just want to mention that.
Could you, if we were to approve one of those tanks, would you be able to manage the other one for another year?
Yeah, I put in two tanks. They're both old. The one is older and the one that our most senior staff runs, it is the one that's the toughest, in toughest condition. With the actual, there's been welds on it, cracking and it's, the one is worse than the other. So, you know, I put in two, they're both definitely need to be replaced but one more than the other.
Thank you. And it doesn't hurt to leak a little bit when you're watering them anyways, does it? Any other questions? You've been
We've
you've done a
grilled
good job,
you.
sir. You have a lot of good understanding and I appreciate your time. Nicole.
Council was asking some questions about wages and total costs for wages for the Public Works Department. And I was able to get on to our server here and pull up my my budget documents for the Public Works Department. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what the total is. So the total cost of wages for the Public Works Department is $986,000 plus another 31% for benefits. And we talked about that before. That usually does run between 30 and 35%. So that's a total cost of $1.3 million.
And that's administration and everything.
That's everything. Truly the administration portion, which I would consider to be Brian as well as our admin assistant, is 206,000 for 406 plus plus benefits on top of that. So another 31%. What you will find is that the actual Public Works Department, just your general workers are 780,000 approximately plus the 31% in benefits, and around 82,000 of that is overtime that they put in. So overtime in the past has usually run from 10 to 12% of their regular wage time. The reason why you will find within the budget that the admin looks higher is that anytime that those guys can't specifically put their time to something specific, or we're paying them overtime, it goes into that administrative line. Whether that's something we want to look at changing in the future, so you can really truly see what's administration, but they do use that admin line for anything that they're doing that doesn't really fit into, you know, a specific category. And Brian might be able to speak to what those types of things would be, but I would think probably maintenance and things like that. So,
Thank you very much. That answers some questions, probably gives us a few more, but it does answer some questions. Go ahead. Councillor.
Through you, your worship, yeah, I would really like to see it, if not in the next little while or next budget for sure, the overtime, right? Because that's valuable to us as councillors if there's a request for staff in the future or things like that. We've had requests from residents, and the mayor and myself and attended some with a large I guess it's a commercial operation asking about extra plowing and stuff like that. So it's good to know what we regularly pay the guys, and then what I'm guessing probably 90% of the overtime's coming at would be the winter stuff, right, Brian? I'm sure there's the odd thing that happens on a Saturday and Sunday. And
Yeah, the majority of it is from your, November 15th, December 1st to the end of March. We really try to minimize any OT during the summer months. Very really to nothing. The only time that you do get is, say, the 24-hour number, the emergency number, a call out for a tree across the road, or a sign down, a stop sign down. Those are where you get a lot of the OT other than the winter months.
And I'm sure if you break it down, like Nicole's saying, it'll make your budget line under admin look a lot slimmer. I wouldn't want it if I was at admin that the overtime being sloughed off onto mine because it's gonna make you look bloated on that side and really that's a cost that's overtime that should be assigned to those guys.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Logo. Yeah, that admin category of their account is on the staff's timesheet as well. So if there's not a, like I said, a job on our timesheet or specific even benefits and stuff that I think goes into that account, it goes to that top line. So there's a lot going to that.
I'm really glad we've had this discussion because it sounds like a miscellaneous fund almost, and it's 50% of the budget, and that's can be
Yeah.
cleaned up.
And just to continue one more, Mayor, when you talk about timesheets, and I've asked this before, who fills out the timesheet? Is the employee filling out their timesheet?
Yeah, currently right now, we're still paper. We're looking to go more electronic here in the near future, but currently right now, every staff member fills out their timesheet and then the supervisor approves the timesheet and it's sent to payroll.
And is that maybe through you, Troy, or maybe Pat, or that other employees, are we looking at eventually getting that? I mean, we're way behind on this. When I retired in 2016, even part-time employees where I worked at, all timesheets were done electronically. And then they send it and it goes right to the supervisor, less paper, less waste. And we wouldn't have admin staff filling out people's timesheets. It's your responsibility as an employee to fill out the timesheet or you don't get paid. So
Yeah, through your mayor and what Brian mentioned, going digital and, you know, there's big plans in Public Works to get with the times, and that would be a simple thing where every employee has in Public Works anyways, has their own little iPad that GPS tracks, that issues work orders right there where they got to sign off. So for example, if they fix a sign, you know, it's all GPS that I fix a sign right then and there, and it shows the location. Time cards are on it as well, so and then as far as admin stuff, it's something that we can and discussions maybe later with Nicole, we could look at if that's required.
and do the firefighters, do they have somebody,
I believe
do
that
they fill out their own or is that done by Diane? Maybe they can look at that too. I have a suspicion that the fire is done by Diane, and I think that should be the employee's responsibility, that time cards, filling them out electronically should be their responsibility to get them in. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Local, getting back to the wage line here, and I'm not saying the staff aren't worth the wages, don't get me wrong. But have you looked at your employees to see if you can do with less, or when you need to hire, do you come to council for approval to hire somebody? How does that process work?
So right now I feel we're at a good complement of staff right now and but yeah, if I was moving forward and there was new jobs or duties, and come forward to you, I would have to bring something to you asking for more staff. But right now we have, basically there's, just so you know, there's 9, so whatever, there's 9 plow routes we have right now. So there's 9 plow routes for snow. So 8 of them are done by full-time staff, and we have 1 seasonal staff that does route in the north that just comes in the winter during call outs for snow.
So you have 9 staff, well, 8 plus 1.
Of operators that run the tandem trucks and stuff like that. Then we have our the lead hand. And we have 12, there's 12 altogether, actually
12
13
staff.
count. Yeah, 12, including my 13, I think altogether. There's
Not
4, 12.
including your female, or pardon me, your office staff.
Yeah, I think there's 14 of us altogether. There's 12 actually. No, I don't think so. I think that's extra too. Or maybe with this, yeah. But right now we have, so right now we currently have, like, there's the patrolling goes on. So right now we have enough staff to cover all the positions right now. We're not looking for any more right now.
And so if one of your staff did retire, would you fill it automatically, or would you assess it and come back to council to let them know that one is retiring and see if that's feasible?
So I guess I would look at, yeah, look at the position and I'd still bring it back to report. We just wouldn't go ahead and replace that person. I'd bring some backup to why we need to replace that
So
person.
you wouldn't do any hiring
Well-
unless it came through council.
We'll make sure we do that. Yes, that's what we'll
That's,
do.
that's
Yeah.
how you do it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Through you, the mayor, just so you know, that is the process for all departments.
Okay.
No one is brought in here without council approval. So a report is brought, we discuss it at council. And then go forward through again, the proper steps of, putting an ad out and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and I'll take a motion to adjourn for 10 minutes. Moved by Councilor Booth. Second by Councilor Ainsworth, all in favor. Motion is carried, we'll be back at 10 to 10.
10 to 10.
10 to 11. Okay, we'd like to go back to budget meeting. I'll take a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor O'Neill. All in favor? Motion's carried. Nicole, where are we going now?
Okay, so I think we've gone through all of the different department budgets. The only thing we haven't dealt with at this point is the list of issue papers. So just a recap. We had started at a levy increase of 6.16% after growth or 7.66% before growth. So far, and this is actually including the projected change in the library budget. We are at 5.97% after growth, 7.47% before growth. So there's two things that I would like to do at this time is have council go through and give us some sort of resolution on each of the issue papers as well, depending on where we are levy impact wise. At the end of going through those issue papers, I can give you an update on where we are with the levy increase, and I would like to get a resolution from council on where they would like to see the budget be. So if they're not happy with where we are with our levy increase, once we've gone through the issue papers, then give staff some
Direction.
kind of direction as far as where you'd like to be.
Okay, can I clarify one thing? I think you said yesterday, the inflation rate for Canada in the past 12 months is 7.1.
Correct.
So we're gonna beat 7.1, hopefully. There's would be my thoughts anyways. I think there's one page, and I just gotta find it here, where you did list all of the issue papers.
I did. If you go
Well,
to
just
section
use your-
4. I believe.
Okay, and is that probably the quickest way to go through that, council?
No, we've got our little purple tabs here.
Okay. Well, we can do that too. So I think, damn thing, number 5.
Through you, Mayor Local, if you're not going to go through the list, if you can just let me know where you're starting so that I can make sure I'm in the right spot for updating the levy impact.
I think we should try and go, if we want to go to the individual ones, we can go to there and we'll find them, but I think in the interest of time, we can go down the list, and if we don't agree, then we'll go into the details. Okay?
Sounds good to me. Council.
So you want to start with fire?
Yep.
Okay, the first one is the community risk asset master fire plan, and it's a 0.43 charge to the levy. Any comments on this one? Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead with the community risk assessment and master plan as outlined in issue paper 1.
Okay,
I'll second it.
we got a motion to move that the first one, which is the community risk asset master and fire plan, be approved. Moved and seconded. Any further comments? Okay, go ahead.
Just
Great.
we're moving it so we can discuss it too, is just, that's one of the things I think that we can't let go. It's what I heard from Chief Dawson is it has to be done right. So I know it's a cost to us as the taxpayer, but it came to council last year and then we said, well, if it's due in 2024, we'll put it off to the next one. So I would support this to say that it has to be done.
If anybody got any other comments, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor of this? That motion is carried. Second one is fire for portable radios. And it's 0.23% increase in the levy. Does anybody know, is it $15,000 or $17,000? Pardon me?
Through you, Mayor Local, it is $17,000.
Okay. Can I get a motion on the floor to consider this? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Booth. And your motion is to accept, I would think.
Yes, the radios, I think, are an important part of the safety of the firefighters.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Catherine.
Whether or not anyone else on council would consider spreading this over 2 years, or if we want to just do this in 1 year. I think the only point of discussion here, I do believe it needs to be done.
Go ahead.
Could I ask, maybe you could answer, Nicole, how many, was it 17 radios he was buying or was it 3 per each, which would be 9? Can't remember. I agree
some
with
reason-
Councillor O'Neill. It has to be done. Can something be spread out? He does have the radios, but
I have in the recommendations and conclusions that it's to approve the purchase of 10 portable radios.
And that would be for all 3 stations.
so either you go 1 radio per station, 2 radio per station, or 3. Otherwise, you're at 10. So the radios they have now work, right, Mary Catherine?
Correct. It's just that there are not enough for the anticipated number of firefighters at a call.
And I don't know if this is the case as well, if I may, through you, Mayor Local, in my other profession, when I had a radio, it was geared to me. And when I was if I needed assistance or anything, when it went through dispatch, it came to me. So I do know the importance of having your own radio and not going in and finding somebody else's radio. And I think he did say that these would be right into their pack. It would be the batteries that they have to keep track of.
Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor Lovell. So spending 18 years in our fire department, when I was there was only 1 radio, and that would be like the incident command person would have it on the field. Now things have changed. I do agree, but the importance of having a radio, that for firefighting, it's a safety issue also. So if there's a man down somewhere, and you don't know about it, that's a problem. So I would say if we could, as a health and safety concern and maybe a risk factor, I would say for the radios, if we could do that, that would be something that I would let this one go. It's my opinion, but being there as a firefighter for the 18 years, and the way it's evolved, I would say that the radios are fairly important for safety for the firefighter.
Thank you. I think it's been moved, you moved it, Joel,
Yes.
for the $17,000. Are you willing to stay with that?
Yes.
motion? I'm gonna call a vote. We go ahead and spend $17,000, or what's requested for this equipment. All in favor? Motion was carried. Next one we have is the audio extraction equipment. No increase in the levy. And it's for $60,000, I believe. I could be wrong with that though. Mary Catherine,
I'll make the motion that we approve this request for the auto extrication equipment.
And it's actually for $65,000.
65,000. Joan, you're gonna accept.
Second it, yes.
Comments? Go ahead, Mike.
So again, I know the extrication equipment is probably 20 years old, maybe older. But I would question the fact if we would take it and refurbish it. There was a time when we had and I know we still have, is mutual aid. So it's you know, being on the 401, we take the westbound and the eastbound, one to Coburg and one to Colborne, and Colborne takes vice versa, and Hamilton Township and Coburg. So all these departments have extrication equipment. So I would say for me, I'm saying no to this one. I would like to see the set that we have. Yeah, it's working.
Yep. Let's
Let's just take it, refurbish it for a few $1,000s if it needs to, and wait till next year maybe.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. This is for 3 pieces of equipment, I believe. One for each station. In my opinion, we should order one. And if the chief agrees to it, put it in Grafton, because that's where he's going to use it most of the time. And take his other one and use it wherever he best he can, and see how it works for 1 year. And so, okay.
To your comment, Mayor, so the new stuff is battery operated. So we'd have to kind of pick the right one. So that's why he wants the new stuff. It's battery operated, and they can take it in the woods if they have to, right? They don't have to worry about hauling all the hydraulic stuff and a tank and a gas stuff, but
The only reason I'm saying that is because it's most likely it's going to be used on the 401, is what my thought is. So go ahead. Greg.
Maybe Mike, you could answer this. So it says 65,000 for the purchase of a set of 3 extradition tools, 1 cutter, 1 spreader, 1 ram. So it's 65,000 for just those 3 pieces, right?
No,
So not
it's
the
for
same.
9 pieces.
9
Well,
pieces.
no, that's not how I'm reading it. So I thought originally, like you said, Mr. Mayor, but I'm reading it as it's $65,000 for 3 tools, which means attachments. So does that mean, Mike, that those 3 attachments just go to one station then, right?
probably station 1.
So I don't think the option of what you're saying, I like what you're saying, Mayor, that instead of buying 3 sets, let's buy 1. But I don't think that option's there. Maybe Mary Catherine knows.
Yes, I've got the motion on the floor, and I actually think at this point, I'd like to come back to this after we see how much we've spent in other areas, if that's possible.
Yeah, we can do that. Go ahead.
I was just going to clarify on page 2 of the issue paper under recommendations. It is that the new extrication tools be in service in station 1, where the risk of motor vehicle accidents is a lot higher, and the service provided to the 401. And then there would do an assessment on the other 2 stations.
Oh, okay, so basically. what I
I'm
was
just
suggesting.
clarifying, yeah.
Thank you.
And further, Chief Dawson did make a very dramatic point. So he opened the truck, the little side storage, to show me what they have existing, and it came flying out at him. Coffee went everywhere. It was very dramatic. But the current stuff isn't properly secured, so it actually is a little bit of a nuisance the way it is right now. But again, I think we should come back to this one. It isn't on the levy, so you know, maybe we want to go ahead now, but maybe we want to just look at it as part of the discussion of reserves at the end, whichever way you prefer, Mayor.
I just had one more comment to you, Mayor Lobo. He hasn't, different times he said, Chief Dawson was talking that he hadn't done the testing on it, because once he tests it, then he knows it's not gonna pass. So, I mean,
I didn't hear that. I thought he said he doesn't know whether it passed.
that's right, but he's pretty sure it's not gonna pass. So the time that and once he tests it and he finds it doesn't pass and brings it to our attention, then our liability is huge. But the fact that he's questioning whether it's gonna pass or not, really the liability is already there. And I think showing up to an accident and having improper gear. I mean, I think there's other places to cut. I don't think extradition tools and this is the way to go. I think we should have these volunteer or the firefighters should have the equipment they need to do the job.
Mike?
Maybe to help Deputy Mayor Stover here and the rest of the council. So that equipment is tested every time they use it. Second of all, training nights, their equipment is pulled out and should be checked. You know, they might do extrication one night, they might do hose and reels and nozzles the next night, or and ladders and stuff the next night. But that stuff should be being tested at least once a month, not counting the time that it's being used. So to say that it needs to be tested, to me, it's a test every time they use it. And if it's not working, it should get fixed.
Good point. And I think he was mentioning the pressure, is what I understood him saying. Didn't he say that, whether it meets the pressure?
Yeah, but like Councillor Ainsworth said, if you go to
Yeah,
training and you go to use it and it doesn't hold pressure or whatever, you're gonna have it fixed right then. So I wouldn't think that any of it is not working. And I like what Deputy Mayor is saying. I know it's a piece of equipment and everything. I mean, I liked what you said too, Mayor, about let's just buy one, but this is one. So
Yeah.
if we buy one, at least we know that we have one really good set that is probably used mostly on the 401 or that. And I'd be very wary because maybe next year he comes back for another set and I'd be saying no if it was. I guess the other question is more for you, Nicole, where I mentioned yesterday. So the money we get back from insurance claims and stuff like that, is there any way that money that we get back, instead of going into the pot, can say that, you know what, we had $105,000 last year, insurance companies pay us for going out and getting people out of their cars and cutting them up and this and that and everything else? Can we not somehow take money right out of there to pay for stuff like this? I gotta say, a lot of the times this equipment's used is probably not too much for the residents. It's more for, and I could be wrong, there's the odd one that goes off the side of the road, but most likely that stuff Councilor Ainsworth, tell me if I'm wrong, most likely it's probably used mostly for the 401, would it be?
doesn't it automatically go to fire? The money?
Yes, through you, Mayor. So all of those funds do come into the fire budget. Are they earmarked for anything specific within the fire department? No, at this time they are not. If you wanted to earmark them, the only way that I could say you could do that would be, as I mentioned yesterday, was to put those funds into a reserve, and then when you want to draw out of that reserve for that type of expense, then you could do that. But right now, that money is coming into the fire department revenues.
And what reserve account is it going into? Equipment, or is it going into capital stuff, or? I have the reserve.
Through you, Mayor Local, it's not going into a reserve right now. That's what I'm
It's just going
saying.
into
That would
the
have to be by direction of council. We would have to put that into a reserve if you want it earmarked for something in the future.
So
as
I'm
opposed
a
to-
little confused when you say it's going into a pot where?
Fire department.
But
Just
what?
in general
It's
revenue.
just in a
General.
general, revenue account?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay,
and I would suggest you leave it there because
it gives you more,
flexibility when
Yeah.
you need it.
okay.
Okay, so Mary Catherine's got the motion on and you want to rescind that motion?
I was just going to say, if we want to come back to that as part of our discussion about reserves, I've looked up here, the amount that he would be looking for from reserves is $9,000.
He must be getting from, where's he getting it from then?
The development charges, which is fair enough, and then, he has some in the equipment reserves, and then the working capital reserve is the last bit.
But is he not using
It's no-
52,000
It's all, yeah,
from the equipment reserve?
Yeah,
he's getting it all
so
from,
I think we should wait until reserves. It is my motion on the floor. Do this as part of the discussion.
you,
about
who
reserves.
Sue seconded that?
I did.
Are you willing to do that?
Well, yes, I can do that, but I really think we should be looking at purchasing it, but I can wait to see where we're at. Thank you.
Next one, thank you. The next one is, Station One upgrades. I believe it's $100,000 and it's 0.22% on the, levy.
I'll make a motion
Yes,
to accept that.
okay. Mary Catherine,
I
second.
second.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
Oh. I get to go first. because I made the motion. That's why I made the motion, sorry.
That's very clear. Go ahead,
As
sir.
you know, I don't like spending money, but the $100,000, and this is an issue that keeps coming out, council. And in the past, it's easy for council to just say, you know what? This is a point, what is it?
2-2.
Off of the tax levy, it's an easy cut and it disappears or whatever, but we can't keep doing this.
No.
And if it's a roof and showing you the pictures of all the damage and everything, we're getting into the same Centerton thing that we were discussing, that we got to get the roof fixed or you're going to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars inside fixing it.
Thank
So just one other thing, and
Yep.
part of that money I agree with is coming from the sale of the Roseneath Hall, right? Nicole?
Through you, Mayor Local, so staff had said they would look for funding if they could fund it through funding, they would, but they that we were proposing that if that wasn't the case, that we do use the proceeds from the sale of the old fire hall, which is approximately $85,000.
So I'm okay with the motion about that, that if Pat applies for funding and the funding goes through, great. Next year, they should be coming back to us with what we want to do with the 85,000. I don't want it then said, oh, well, we'll use that somewhere else. And if the funding doesn't come through, then I think it's good that we can say to the residents, the $85,000 from the sale of the fire hall was put towards fire, and I would agree to that. That's my
Okay.
comment.
Mary Catherine?
I think it is important that the rest of council realizes that this roof is in fact protecting an asset. So there has been extensive work done in improving the interior. And it would be a shame not to protect the investment that's happened there today or this year. I understand and appreciate your argument, Councillor Booth, about the fire hall being used for fire hall. I also understand and appreciate the argument from a resident who came to me saying it should be used for buildings in Roseneath. And so I think we need a fulsome discussion on that at another point.
Mike?
I agree on the roof 100%, but I just want to make sure that we do two things, is get 3 quotes and we look to see, like if it's a steel roof, Joan brought it up yesterday, these things last for 50 years, maybe or longer, but there might be an avenue for where it, you know, you might only have to replace 2 or 3 of the sheets or something. So, you know, and that might bring the cost down a lot, but yes, it needs to be replaced.
Mary Catherine?
I might be able to help you a little bit on that. My understanding is that that building and roof was from 1975. So we are looking at, in 2 years, the 50th anniversary there. And there's a beautiful little historical display just outside. And Chief Dawson has done a little bit of cleanup around it. Am I telling stories? You're looking at me. Anyway, and the Heritage is also interested in doing something to improve the landscape there. And my understanding is that people off the 401 are just pulling off and saying, well, where can we eat lunch? And they are in fact already using that space in that way. So it is of interest to me.
Just for clarification, I think, Mike, you told me you started with the fire hall first moved in. A time ago. So in my opinion, I don't think you're correct, Mary Catherine. I think that's probably 1995 rather than 1975. Unless Mike's a lot older than he.
Well, my oldest son was born in 87. And I think when we opened the fire hall, he was probably 3 years old.
Yeah.
You
I
think
it was-
about 1990?
Yeah.
I think that's a number we need.
Go ahead.
But I will say, for your comment, Mike, is that he did say, and I know last year when I was with fire, they've been up on the roof, replaced some panels, and I think he made the comment 20 tubes of caulking or whatever. There's only so much you can put into it. And then it's like, you know what? We've been babying this along, like I said, for year after year after year. And it's just sort of, let's take the money, especially if 80 grand of it, I really like is coming from somewhere else. Let's just do it. And then none of us will be around the next time it has to be done.
All in for a vote. All in favor. Motion is carried. Next, we have Station 2 building upgrades for potential funding, and there's nothing to the levy. And I believe it was for 100,000. No,
20.
Oh, 20,000.
Yes.
Oh, okay, well, that's,
The roof was 100.
okay, Mary Catherine?
I just want to give a bit of background before we put this motion on the floor. So where it's saying potential funding, this is the removal.
Yeah, get a motion and then.
Yeah, we should make a motion first, Mary Catherine.
Okay, so I'll make the motion then that he only proceed with upgrades to Station 2 that can be funded through what is earned from the sale of that great big tank.
So that's your motion. Can I get a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Booth. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So let me just understand this. You would know for sure, Mary Catherine. He said that the big expense is going to be removing the wall and taking the tank out. So he better make sure before he takes the wall out and he takes the tank out that he's getting something for that, or we're going to be left with a bill of putting the wall back to. So it's $20,000, which is how much off the levy? It's nothing, right? Because I would agree with you. If he can do it with funding and make the money somewhere else and it's not on the levy and he's not using any of his funds or anything, I'm all for it. But if he can't do that, then I would say, no, we're already spending $100,000 on the roof. A lot of this small cleanup stuff and things like that can go another year there.
I would agree. I think that Station 2 is going to come back to us during our term here, and that's what I'm looking at, and what I understand is that he is looking at having that big tank, and he does think there'll be revenue generated from it, but I don't think we want to be putting any money other than that, and maybe we want him to just get rid of that tank this year and then come back next year with a full plan.
So your motion is to approve.
Mine is to approve only what he, like, that he can't spend any money other than what he would generate from the sale of that tank.
Go ahead, Troy. Oh, you don't have no comment?
Councillor Ainsworth does.
Go ahead, Mike.
So again, I was there when we opened that fire department. And the wall, so the west wall was put back in place with the idea that one day it was going to be removed again. So it's not like it's a bearing wall or anything. Right? So it should be, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy item, but it's not going to be a structural issue, I guess is what I'm saying. So, and then getting the tank out of there. So, and I think what I'm hearing from Chief Dawson is that he wants to use that room for bunker gear and changing and that the system that fills the SCBA's. So the $20,000 probably is an issue, even if he sells the tank, maybe that could go back into the fire department fund, which would offset the $20,000, again, what Councillor O'Neill was talking about. And but I can't help but ask why some of this part of the budget is not Public Works, because they need to clean up their mess before the fire department takes it over again.
Counselor, sorry, Deputy Mayor Stover.
To you, Mayor Logal, do we have any idea how much this tank we're gonna get from this tank? Cause I mean, this is, it's not, the levy impact is zero, and I mean, I think upgrades need to be done. The other thing is this bunker gear room thing. I mean, that is something that needs to get looked at as well. So I would agree with passing what he's asked for, and if there's any money from sales, that it go back into the reserves where he got it from.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Logal, I just want to clarify, it is showing on the issue paper listing as zero impact to the levy. However, Clerk Pat Kemp had mentioned that she wasn't entirely sure at this point whether we would receive the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings program, whether that would, any of the fire buildings would be eligible for that or not. So although this does show as 0% impact, if we were to move forward with this item and not be able to receive funding, there would be a 0.3% impact to the levy. So just to keep that in mind in your resolution.
Go ahead.
And that was my concern, just looking at this, Nicole. It says that it's $20,000. And it's saying zero if we get the grant, and Mary Catherine, it doesn't
Okay.
mention anything about selling the tank, but now that you brought that forward, so I'm a little weary that
Yeah.
all this is contingent on funding. I don't approve $20,000 that if the grant doesn't go through, to me, you're not getting any money. So if the grant goes through, go ahead and do it or whatever, sell the tank, whatever you can do, but not a dime is on the levy for this. It's gotta be all grant or nothing. And like you said, next year he can come back with that station, and obviously there's gonna have to be some work there, and we'll have to look at one station at a time, right?
Yeah,
Pat's done
okay,
well.
I go along with that.
So based on the webinar that I attended yesterday afternoon, fire departments would not qualify for this grant.
And I guess my only concern would be the storage of the bunker gear. And I guess it's been fine for 10 years or whatever. So another year won't hurt, I guess is what my views are. So I think we're saying no, isn't that basically it?
Yeah, so I will amend my motion to say not at this time. If he finds other funding and comes back, we'll
Okay.
listen to him, but otherwise next
You're
year.
gonna support that?
Yes, I support
Councilor
that.
Booth?
Yeah.
I'm gonna call for, go ahead, Mike.
I can agree with what's on the floor, except for the fact that the place still has to be cleaned up. So can we push that back on the Public Works, Mr. CEO?
I'll
Yeah.
make sure it's all cleaned up in cooperations with Public Works. Yes,
Okay, perfect.
I'll make sure.
Can I mention just, I know it's off the question, but we're talking about the stations getting cleaned up. So the roof in Station 1, there's nothing in the budget that I see unless I'm not, because there's a lot of pictures there if it needs to be cleaned up from all the water leaking. So if that's
Station 1?
Station 1. There's a lot of water damage in there.
Wasn't that? Oh, okay.
So I don't know if the 100 grand was to clean it up and get it repainted and fix some of the ceilings that's fallen down, and I know.
Go ahead, Mary Catherine. Sorry.
Sorry, that work is underway already, Councillor Ainsworth, so that's why I'm saying it's important that we put that roof on to protect the work that's been done this year, to fix the items that he showed in that picture.
Okay, so we're coming back to number 2. We were saying we're not gonna do it this year. All in favor? Motion is carried not to go on. I'm gonna skip the next one. Because I think we could be into that for a long time, and we're gonna go down to council chambers, working capital reserve, no effect. And I think they will request for $150,000. Can I get a mover and a second to put it on the floor? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. What do you think there, Deputy Mayor?
I would say that, no to council chambers upgrades. The only caveat is to make sure that what we have here for audio is, can be fixed if there's cords or whatever before we put in the 40 or 50,000 for the audio.
Okay. Questions, comments? Go ahead.
I agree. It's a big no for me too, other than the audio.
Do we have a breakdown of the audio? How much the audio would be?
Through you, Mayor, as I said yesterday, it'd be between 50 and 75 to get a professional in here and get it all done, hide the wires with the proper cameras, microphones and stuff. So, you know, I could do an RFP and, you know, and bring it to council and hopefully, you know, if it's under 50, so we can start with that.
Okay. Mary Catherine?
I would like to see this brought forward again next year in a much more comprehensive way as part of our communications and technology strategy, with the exception that I would like to see 5,000 or even 10,000, whatever number council thinks, to specifically address the connection at the laptop, because we know that that is something that can be replaced and the connection will be improved. And then the rest of it come back to us next year as part of comprehensive plan for communications and technology.
Good point. CAO, do you have a comment?
No, if that's what council wishes, you know, $10,000, I'll see what I can do, put a quote or get some quotes of companies to come in and try and correct it. If that's what council wishes, we can go that route. I'm good.
Any other comments? So we've got a suggestion to amendment. Your.
Yes, up to 10,000
For the court,
for upgrades to
Court?
whatever, yeah, to the audio.
is that what it's to the audio or the?
My understanding
the
is it's the laptop and the
Oh.
connection to the laptop.
Oh, okay, pardon me. Yeah,
So maybe even 5, I don't know, 10 as a cap, 10,000 as a cap.
okay. Further discussion? All in favor that we spend up to $10,000 to improve that connection? Motion's carried.
Just a comment too, we saved a bunch of money there, but it didn't do anything for the levy,
I know, I know.
which we haven't touched really yet.
We
Let's-
will. There's a spot coming up.
Facility asset or accessibility audit. A 0.72 effect on the levy. Mover and a seconder, moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Booth. You have the floor, Deputy Mayor.
I was getting it on the floor. What tab is that on in our book? Thank you. This would have to be in order for 2025. And I would say, is there staff on in-house that most of this could be done in-house, Mr. CAO?
I do believe our CBO has had some training, so I can get him to do an internal audit and go from there.
Because if we can take that off, that would save, for this year, that would save a the percentages.
Mary Catherine, you have a comment?
I support your direction here to do as much as we possibly can internally. So we've got our CDO and our assistant in building as well. So I'm confident that most of the work can be done internally. I would perhaps be comfortable with leaving a small amount in case they feel they need to reach out for expertise. But I don't believe we should do the full contracting out, but I would like to see a bit for expertise, maybe 5,000.
Councillor Booth.
Maybe it's clarification, maybe to you, Pat. Is that just for this building?
Yes.
So they're just gonna do the interior and exterior to see whether we meet the AODA requirement?
What would it take to make it meet the current standards? Yes.
Or the
So I would
standards.
agree. I mean, if it's
25,
possible,
sorry.
we could do it internally. I can't see it being too much of an issue to, to go around with Daryl's expertise. And I don't like to say it that we're adding more to Daryl because he's already come and presented to us that he's under pressure and he's asking in the next one for extra staff and we're giving him more work. But I think this is somewhere where we could probably save some money and have it done internally.
Mary Catherine?
I guess as a question to our CAO then, what are we doing about all the rest of the buildings in this municipality?
Through your mayor, you're right. A lot of accessibility has to be done on a number of them. We're in good shape with a number of these facilities, but we got to make a big decision on some of them, whether we're keeping them or not. So I'm waiting to hear from council what we are keeping, what we're not keeping before I go out and try and spend any money. I know we're keeping town hall. I have to make it accessible. So, but back to in-house. Yeah, we can definitely do it in-house and I'll provide a report to council with estimated costs and stuff. We can do it.
Can we put a limit on what we want to spend extra for professional assistance? So we leave something in here like $5,000 or $10,000, whatever. I don't know what that is.
I think there is some in here already, is there?
I thought it was for 70,000 bucks. Go ahead, Mike.
Just my 2 cents, like, if we're gonna do it in-house, why does it have to be a number with it?
Well, Mary Catherine was saying he might have to get some help for some stuff that he isn't familiar with. That was my understanding anyways.
Right, so, as much as he has some basic knowledge, there will be certain things where whoever is doing the audit is reading the piece of legislation and then saying, what's this application specifically look for? Some of it will be straightforward. Sure, the door needs a window. We can look and say, well, the door has a window or doesn't have a window. We don't need to pay 50,000 for that. But more complicated things like, does this elevator actually meet moving forward? That one might be a trickier one.
Okay.
So I think in the end, there might be half a dozen things where we need to get expert rather than just saying, okay, I can see that door has a window check mark or that door doesn't have a window.
Okay, so does somebody want to put a limit?
5,000?
Okay, that was your motion,
Yeah.
correct?
5,000?
All in favor of?
No, does he support that?
All in favor? Carry.
It's like the movie Gladiator.
Next one is by law enforcement officer, 0.46%. Change to the budget. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. You have the floor.
I can't, through you, Mayor Local, I can't support this at the moment. I need more information. I don't have the information I need to support this hire. So I would not support it.
Okay. Ms. O'Neill.
As it stands, I'm also not in favor of it for two reasons. The first, this needs to come forward, I believe, as part of our STR, which I think we're going to need to see as something distinct. What's our revenue going to look like for STR? What are our anticipated expenses for STR? And then we'll have some sense of it from there. The second is back to my observation this morning about the expense of hiring someone and it being carried forward. And when we're looking at hiring a full-time person between fire and bylaw, that's an expense not just of the 70,000 in wages or whatever that number comes to. It's also the expenses of benefits, and it's a carry forward expense for the full term for us if we do that, because it's pretty tricky to take positions away once we've introduced them. So really, I think what we're looking at in front of us in this, are we giving a check mark or not giving a check mark, is a $400,000 question.
Go ahead, Mike.
I would agree also with both Deputy Mayor Stover and Councillor O'Neill. And for me personally and my background, there should be some time studies done on, let's find out exactly what everybody's doing and exactly how much time we have throughout different departments and stuff where people could help out. And the second thing is, I'm still not in favor of putting someone in a position as a bylaw enforcement officer where they could get assaulted. So that's something that we need to think about, and we can hire a security firm for $30 an hour for one guy to go and do this stuff for us.
Go ahead. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, I'm torn at this. I understand in Daryl's presentation yesterday, and he's got a lot of pressure, especially with the STRs coming and the Roma thing that we went to, that bylaws just exploded with this. But I do agree with Councillor Ainsworth. And I guess the deciding factor for me here is Daryl had $30,000 in the budget and we only spent roughly 15. When that day comes where I see as a councillor that we've spent $30,000 or more on part-time staff to help them out, then it might be worthwhile. Should we look at a full-time person? Because as you said, Mary Catherine, once you hire a full-time person, you're never going back. It's not going to be. And then it's the 33% cost, like you said, Nicole, of benefits. You're going to be looking at a truck and computer and a place for them to sit and everything. So it's quite expensive. I do like the idea you said, Mike, about maybe with STRs and that we should put an RFP out there that we can get and it would have to be the big burly guy with the camera and everything, because we have to be very careful. I've seen some security places that they hire, and nothing against it, but they hire a 75-year-old man that walks in here and he's just sort of more a watchman. That's not the type of person you need. If they're going out to these STRs and some of these property owners that we have that don't give a damn whatever we say to them, you need a more professional security company. So at the time, I can't support it.
I have agree with some and don't agree with some of it too. First of all, we're going to take our building and bylaw enforcement officer out of the job for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks. I'm not sure to properly assess this building. Probably 10, let's say 10 weeks. We're going to pay somebody else $70,000. That's what he would make normally in a year. So it's going to take some time to do that. I believe that this gentleman is busy pretty all the time on building and bylaw. I also think that maybe that is the right answer, that we have somebody hired as a commissioner to come in there and do it, but it's going to be a lot of work. And it's going to take a lot of time. And I also agree that I'm not sure that we need a full-time person, but I think we do need $30,000 or something in the budget to pay for commissioners or whoever we want. And from what I could see from what those other people, they are very, not just going to send a bylaw officer out there to find out what's going on. And I mean, they send out pieces of paper that are put on the walls of that building, and then he goes to check those people to make sure that they are in fact only 6 people. And we're going to have to get tough until we do. And the other thing that I want to say too, I heard it loud and clear, not just SBRs, but throughout when I was knocking on doors, that the bylaws are not followed. They're there, but they're not followed. So we've got to, get off the pot, I guess to finally say all of that. Mary Catherine?
I 100% agree with your last comments there. My concern is how this is being brought forward to us. I want to see it brought forward as part of an organized argument that is justifying it, not just saying, well, you know, it'd be nice. And where are revenues that are going to be generated from some of this, and where are costs with this? And again, I don't see here the issue paper for fire, but that is a large wage increase. And I did try to chirp in yesterday on the phone, but nobody could hear me. So our Chief Dawson isn't here, but you know, that's a line in the budget that has increased as well, is the administration for fire. And you know, are we approving that line or not approving that line with that increase? I think the two go hand in hand. And again, I've watched in the last 5 years, staff wages increase. And at some point we just have to say, let's do these time studies. Let's try to see and justify what we're doing. But that STRs, we need to know what staff is going to be involved in it, whether there's an option to work with our neighbors on it, because obviously Trent Hills and Hamilton are experiencing the same thing. Perhaps we're better to see this come forward as a joint thing that we're doing, sharing with our neighbors. I just think there needs to be a lot more. This is huge, and we need to be addressing it as such.
Go ahead. Councillor Booth.
A question maybe for Nicole on this. Nicole, if we were to turn this down, but give him back the $30,000 for part-time staff again, because we can't, it's one or the other. If we're not giving him full-time, we have to give him back the $30,000 or whatever we decide as council, because we can't expect him to do it. What does that make the difference on the levy? Would probably take you a few minutes to work it out maybe, but I'll leave it with you, because if we cut this, which is 0.46 off the levy, I'm guessing even with the 30,000, because it wasn't in his budget, it's still going to be. But I agree with what you're saying, Mary Catherine, and I would like to go back to the point I made. There's $30,000 there. I would be advising you, Daryl, use all that money up. And I've said this to Daryl before. If you come to us in June or July, Daryl, and say that the $30,000 is all gone because of STRs or whatever, then it's on us as council to say, well, we got to pony up the money and we have to pay. And hopefully with the STR group that's coming, what we saw, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, is in a lot of these other townships, it doesn't cost the taxpayer a dime, because they're making sure that all the inspection costs and the bylaw officer that goes out there is all paid by the people that are making the big money from it. And it should not be one dime on the taxpayer that some guy down the end of my street wants to run a hotel.
Mary Catherine?
Just a little note. I'm uncomfortable that we continue to call staff by first name rather than by titles when we're having some of these discussions.
Agree. Good point. Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy.
Through you, Mayor Logo, to Mr. CAO. That being said, I think the part-time position for the bylaw in the building and bylaw department, I think council needs to know more about what is being used, where this person is going. Because I did hear that the person was out in December. So I think it's important that we differentiate what is needed, and I just leave that with you to do some homework there, and if you could report back to staff. I think that whole report back to staff and the paper and the sheet that I did send over to you, that will give us maybe some problem areas that we need to clean up ourselves here.
Mary Catherine?
I'm comfortable to amend the motion as it's on the floor to say that we continue for this year, because we've got to put something in a budget line somewhere, as Councillor Booth said, continue this as a contract for this year, because until we look at what current staff is doing and what the implications are from the STRs.
Mike,
Through your worship, so could some of this be left up to direction that council gives Deputy Mayor Stover and I for the ad hoc committee for the short-term rentals? And so if you're gonna set aside $30,000, you know, could it be 20,000? Or if it's 30 and we come up with ways to cover the enforcement, that it goes back into you know, back into another account. And second of all, if we're gonna hire students, do we get offset by the government for hiring students?
portion. We used to get $10 an hour or $6
But
an hour.
I'd speak against that, Mike. You just made the comment. If I don't want to send our current bylaw officer into a situation, sure as hell, I don't want to send a 19-year-old student over to some of these properties either. We got to do it professionally.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, and Mary Catherine, I like what you said, we just need to put that dollar amount there. When you come back to us, if we don't spend all that $30,000, the money comes back. If we have to spend more because of decisions made, then like I said, it's going to have to come back to council and we have to live with that decision if it's another $20,000, right? So,
Well,
but
Yeah.
we need money for him. We can't not give him money or it's like, we're going to be worse off. STRs are coming around the corner in another few months, and currently right now we have somebody, but maybe like you said, Deputy Mayor, he could look at other options, or Mike, like you, instead of sharing with the fire department, maybe he decides to get his own.
Yeah, just to clarify that the students was more like he needed a student for doing some clerical work and getting maps on turning the data and stuff like
I
that.
thought that was planning though, wasn't it?
Well,
They were
shared-
gonna scan,
shared.
It was shared, yeah. So that's kind of where I was going with the students, but I do agree with you 100%.
And I'll make one other comment. We'll be discussing it later on this afternoon and close, but I think if you've had a chance to look at some of that information there, it will tell you that bylaw enforcement is going to get busier and busier. So just my comments. So Nicole, we were asked a question regarding the $30,000 and through Councillor Booth. I just wondered if we got an answer for that.
Yeah, so when I look at the budget lines that we have right now for bylaw, including all of the benefits, it's actually showing at $42,000. If we were to cut that down to just putting in a $30,000 budget again this year, that would decrease by $12,000 or 0.117% decrease.
And if I have another question, if I could. Council, I understand, Councillor Booth, that you said that council approved some money to be spent for bylaw enforcement, and that was to bring a fellow, so it was shared out of the fire hall. When was
Well-
that done?
Well, last year at budget time, the same request came for a full-time person. And correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, we upped the amount to $30,000 with the same caveat that spend that money, and if you overspend it, it'll come back to us. And then STRs blew up, in April or May, and it was like, this is going to be big time money, right, to be spent. But it was always on the issue of, if you need more money, come back to us. Daryl couldn't find, it's very tough, as you know, we were at the Roma conference. It's very tough now to find a retired CBO person.
Okay,
They're just not out there. So Daryl couldn't find anybody that would be willing to come part-time. So we went the way of splitting the cost with the fire department, because the person right now at the fire department that does fire inspections is already in at a house. So it was great that that person could do two things at once. He can do the bylaw inspection and the fire inspection. And it was a great solution at that time, temporary solution to say, we can bring this guy on. We don't have to wait weeks to hire and everything. He can start on Monday.
And my question to you then is, there was $30,000, which you were gonna spend over the year, but did you start it off right at that time, or was it June before that was given as the okay to start that?
I'm not sure. Troy could answer when the fire person started dipping into that money. I'm not sure.
Through your mayor, I believe soon as it was approved. He was the contract bylaw was going out and you know, actually getting some training and so on and so forth, but I believe it started right away.
January?
I believe it's early 2022.
And so there was two, Mr. Mayor, two. The original was for 6 months. And then Pat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere in October or whatever with the last council, we extended that person's contract, I believe, again, because it was running out. And that would cover us until decisions are made with the STRs. Is that correct? In the fall sometime, we extended that person's contract, right?
Yes, and it didn't start right in January because we hadn't got the budget passed until I believe February, so it was like March or April before it ever started.
But they would have been involved in all the STR stuff
Yes,
because that started
correct.
like in April, May.
Yep.
So it was a pretty good, view of what he's spending.
So I think we're down to, if I can, are we gonna spend the 30,000 or are we gonna spend 42,000, or is
Well,
put in the budget for 30,000?
I'm even wondering if we should cap it at 20. Because he only spent 12,000 last year, and it seemed to me they was going great guns, and I think with proper organization with the ad hoc committee, it might assist.
I think with all the cash you're gonna bring in, 20,000 will be, you won't even need the 20,000 myself, but go ahead. Mary.
So we have a motion on the floor, which was moved by Deputy Mayor Stover and seconded by Councillor O'Neill, that they didn't support the bylaw enforcement at the moment and they needed more information. So if you're going to make a subsequent motion, you'll need to withdraw that motion. And then Councillor O'Neill had made an amendment, but it wasn't seconded, and that was to continue for 2023 as the contract and look at the current staffing.
So technically, which one should go first?
Well, normally an amendment would, but we don't have a seconder, so unless
I'll
you
ask
get a
for a second.
seconder, then
I can second that. That cleans that up.
So what's the new motion then?
so the first motion, then either you need to withdraw it.
Okay.
Or it's amended, because the way it stands now, the first motion was that council didn't support it.
That's right.
The second motion is an amendment, and that is to continue for the 2023 at the current contract and look at the current staffing.
Okay,
So, and then I heard
And I
Deputy Mayor
typed up
Stover
with
just,
20,000.
yeah, so
Yeah. I'll withdraw my amendment, please.
Go back to the first one now.
I would like to do an amendment for the 20,000.
so you.
so
got it.
at
She can withdraw
Okay.
that
Sorry.
first one.
So the first motion, as it stands now, is that you don't support it. So
Yes.
if you still feel that way, that's fine. The mayor can call the vote on that. If you want to change it or withdraw it, then
I can change it. I would make a change to 20,000 for the budget for the bylaw.
just for clarification, it's that you don't support it at the 30,000 level. However, you will support it at 20,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Can I
you.
get a seconder to drop it from $30,000 to $20,000? Seconded by Councilor O'Neill. All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh,
Go
discussion.
ahead.
Oh, nope, that's fine. I've already stated the issues that I find.
I
with
won't
this.
vote in favor of that. I think that is a real slap to the bylaw department that we're going to go back to this person and say, you asked for a full-time guy and guess what? You're not even getting what you got last year. That $30,000 there, I think, Troy needs to go to that department. If we give them back the 30,000 and say, council wants to see that you're spending that money. Once you spend that money and you show that you're really busy, then you can come back to us and look at a full-time position. But, and I get what you're saying, Deputy Mayor, he only spent 15, let's give him 20. But I think this year STRs are going to explode again, and especially with all the licensing and everything. And I hope the mayor's correct, and I'm on side with you, Mr. Mayor, that I hope we have money coming in, that these people are, but I got a feeling it's going to be like all the other townships, that people are going to tend to hide away. They don't want to pay that $750, and we're going to need that bylaw people to get out there and enforce it. And I think Joan, it ties your hands too, because you and Mike, if it's $20,000 isn't going to go long when you're investigating STRs and stuff like that and going out there and writing.
But
So,
that gives the caveat that he can come back when he's spent the 20,000.
well, that's
like
why
that's way-
I would use the same argument. We could put 30 in there, and if he only spends 22, he doesn't have to come back to us, right? So if you left it at 30, just the optics of it is we're giving you the same money as you had last year. But I see your point, but I wouldn't vote for 20.
And I would recommend that we are taking him off of his job to do save a whole bunch of money on this piece of equipment or building as well. We're gonna have to,
Mary Catherine.
Mary Catherine, you have a comment?
I still believe that the omission of revenue from STRs and the costing that we're anticipating from STRs, we cannot make good decisions without having some targets on those. And I do appreciate that some of that will come back in terms of what happens with the committee and with ourselves over the course of the year. But how do we have a budget when we know that there's this huge thing? How much should be in there as anticipated revenues and how much should be in there as anticipated costs, which ties into what Councillor Booth is saying. And to your point, 20,000 above and beyond what we are going to get, which what is our anticipated revenue from STRs, which should actually be revenue that becomes part of bylaw.
I think we're, in my opinion, we're arguing about hands and nails.
Yeah.
If we don't put it in the budget, he's gonna come back with us if it gets more expensive. And if we do put it in the budget, then we're gonna, hopefully have enough. So I think we're arguing, if we're really gonna get serious about STRs, we can't go through it halfway through the year and all of a sudden say, well, we spent the budget and walk away from it. That just can't happen. Very confident.
So can we add a budget line where we're anticipating whatever number, 10,000 in revenue, leave the 30,000, but add, which is going to decrease the cost, hopefully to the 20,000 that, but it is 10,000 an unreasonable amount to think we're going to generate with the bylaw the way it is. Like that number needs to be there.
Well, how many people do we have? 51?
So I just did a rough calculation. So if you have 51 STRs and we're gonna charge $750, that's 38,250
Income.
revenue.
Right, so we need to show the revenues, which, and I am not saying that this couldn't become a full-time, but there's two issues to making it full-time. One is the costing, where are we paying for it from? And the other is just staffing use overall, which is a different discussion completely, but.
Yeah, I don't think any of this proposal, other than the proposal itself, is to hire a full-time person.
Not at this point.
No, this is to, contract or whatever, but get us through this year. That's what we're talking about.
Oh. Sorry, question to the treasurer then. I think we want to break for lunch here, but can we, before we do anything else on this, put in a line for STR revenues? And then does it make sense that we're still leaving the 30,000 there, but we are not thinking we're getting the 30,000 fully from, like, we think it's going to be offset by revenue?
Through you, Mayor Local, the only additional miscellaneous revenue that we'd added in bylaw was the $4,000 in miscellaneous revenue. So if that's the expected revenue, I can also double check that with Daryl to see if that's his thoughts, and we would definitely bring back that revision.
Okay. Go ahead.
So if I make a suggestion, maybe for today, council may want to just defer this issue. And then that will give the treasurer time to prepare something, and then we'll have a chance to talk to the chief building official, bylaw enforcement officer, and then bring back some of the information that council has requested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can do that.
So, yeah, if you
we
could just have a motion to defer it, please.
I make a motion to defer this and bring it back with the revised numbers.
And seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Carried. Which before we break, we need to decide when is the best time to finish this discussions. That's not available tomorrow.
I can be until noon tomorrow.
Pardon me?
I can be until noon tomorrow.
But I mean, is our
Do we?
meeting gonna go long today? Could we pick up?
We have,
Will be midnight. for
we have a
dinner.
closed meeting too, so it's gonna go long.
7 o'clock, and if you want to go later, we can go later. I guess. I think, Pat, you have to be here. Not that I mean,
She's on vacation.
pardon me?
No,
Well, you have us coming in.
yeah, I have you, sorry,
Yep.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I have you coming in on the 9th if council agrees to that this
Yes.
afternoon. So maybe in the morning you can
Does that
do
give
the
Full enough time.
When?
the 9th, Tuesday. I think it's
That's no
Tuesday,
good.
Thursday, sorry,
That's,
Thursday.
That's no
Depends when
good
you
for
put
me.
Everything for the 16th.
So are you better to, sorry, through you?
Is it tomorrow good for everybody? Except for Pat?
If you do in the morning, I can come.
How about tomorrow morning?
so what's next week look like? What about Monday?
We have to, the polls can't be waiting forever. There's a push there. Is Monday too late to poll?
How about Saturday, the 4th,
Sunday
if
was-
we're all
May the
dedicated?
4th be with you. No, we can't wait till May 4th.
So sorry, you're looking at February
6th.
Do we,
I
do you
am-
need to be here, Pat? Like. I'm just asking.
Like I can come tomorrow morning if you have it tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's not right. If you're on vacation.
you're
you're
No,
on
it's
vacation.
fine. I'll just leave at noon. That's fine.
Not to insult you, I don't think you have to be here, but. She wants to. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I think we've got to honor Nicole's needs too, so.
I mean, tomorrow is fine for me. I will make it work. I might bring some tax bills up here to fold, but.
I'd say tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Oh, well, I think you can just give us all some to
And
hold
we'll
on.
all fold them while we're doing.
I thought we had yesterday booked anyway.
Huh?
I thought we had tomorrow booked anyway.
No, we talked about it. If we didn't have it done today, we should talk.
But we
about it
knew
tomorrow.
Pat's on. So could Yolanda not fill in as the
Yep.
clerk?
Monday morning would be better, but
Monday morning would be
How's
good for
Monday
you.
morning for everybody?
Yep.
That's
I
good for me.
am registered for the climate conference that you had sent me. That's okay. I can listen to it.
Okay,
kind of at the
yeah,
same
tomorrow
time.
morning. Let's try to get it done tomorrow morning.
Well, there,
What do you want to do? We heard Mike, what do you want to do?
I'm concerned about the tax bill stuff as well, so can we work it? I know you're not Mary Catherine have a conflict on Monday, but
are we not meeting on Tuesday afternoon, or that's not starting on, yeah, that's next month.
Does Monday work for you?
Monday works good for me.
Nicole?
I will make Monday.
Yeah.
Monday morning then, 9
What time's
o'clock.
your course?
I don't know what's that.
I mean, I can do tomorrow, it just, I need to make sure that. stuff-
No, you'll be up here and your mind will be downstairs. So.
So 9 AM?
9 AM Monday morning.
And that way the clerk
And
can
we'll-
have a day off and enjoy her day off.
That's a good point. And
Then she won't. be
right
so
now,
pushy with
I'll warn you, bring your supper because we're gonna finish on Monday.
Well, there can't be much more for us to do.
Oh. Okay, can I get a confirming bylaw? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Booth, all in favor? Motion is carried. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor O'Neill, all in favor? And thank you. Do we get back to people that are coming on early, tell them we're gonna be 20 minutes late or something like that?
I could probably put a notice on that.
Yeah. Tell them our first meeting got a little bit delayed and according to one, is that it? 12:45? Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
All right, thank you.